Are you having trouble making it play, Mark? Oh, yes, there we go.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
An amazing event happened on planet Earth in the beautiful city of Beijing, China. The cosmic ray technology was shown for the first time to the public by the financial arm of Keshe Foundation, the American Mark Ray Corporation, which is traded on the US stock exchange. Mr. Keshe himself went to China to show creation of materials from the magnetic fields by using obsolete technology, or what we call rotating gas reactors with electric motors. He's using these old reactors as a starting point for humanity to slowly accept the evolution in science and technology. For 3 days straight, the reactors were run and shown live on Zoom so that anybody from around the world who wanted to could come in and see. Black particles like dust start appearing on the white paper sheets around the reactors. These particles are being created through the reactors and the fields of the universe and the inertia of our planet. They are not coming from the room. There were 4 sets of pairs of reactors with red and green gases spinning in them. We were told they were not CH3 and CuO, but something else. They were set up in a star formation on tables inside the front windows of the Intercontinental Hotel. Anybody passed on the street could see them. White papers and spoons were spread around the reactors to catch the materials being formed from the fields. Some knowledge seekers were able to capture on video when black specks suddenly appeared on the paper, like out of thin air. It was very interesting to witness when energy first appears in the matter state. As time went on and the fields built up and changed strength, the specks formed into bigger pieces and some elongated, and some changed color into gold. This is the first time the public has been able to freely witness the creation of matter from energy. At the end of 3 days, Mr. Keshe collected more particles and showed everyone attending. An interesting thing occurred. When he touched the black dust on the paper with his finger, it turned gold. He said it interacted with the fields of the inertia of the earth through his finger. This phenomenon was written about in ancient times when the Greek god Midas touched things and it was said they turned to gold. What we witness here is how everything in the universe is created, from ourselves to the planets and even cancer.
and welcome each and all to the Keshe American Knowledge Team, or otherwise known as the University of the Universe. But this, again, is across the entire planet. The knowledge is the same in Brazil as Russia, in China, in Iran, and all the other countries. So, again, this is universal knowledge we're sharing. We welcome all of you for being here. Again, as we understand, our souls have brought us here for specific reasons, and it just wasn't a happenstance that we're in the Keshe Foundation at this time. And I hope a few of you get prepared to be worshiped. As Mr. Keshe said, that you knowledge seekers will be worshiped in the future time. Maybe this is a part of learning to be humble as well, even to the point of kissing your hand, and maybe some of the other things that were applied to Christ. So we're in a very beautiful position. And of course, we're just the early, or just understood a little bit, just a few moments before the others. As we know, this knowledge is getting rolled out not only on this planet, but across the universe. We can all participate in this beautiful understanding of the Creator in the process of creation. And of course, we have many systems that are being deployed as such things as the One Nation Network, the game of peace and enlightenment, the UBISO systems are coming forward, and the beautiful Mark Ray Corporation, which I probably should just flash their title page here, where you can go on the Mark Ray Corporation, the home of cosmic ray technology. And this is what Mr. Keshe was showing in Beijing. This is actually a traded company on the stock exchange. And of course, there'll be a balancing company as well in China, or I guess in Shanghai. This will be the Chinese Mark Ray Corporation, connected but probably independent at the same time. And again, this corporation has a certain designation of space technology and research. As Mr. Keshe said many times, this is mostly about bringing humanity and man into the universal community, or the understanding of the energy dimension. So let me just go back to our background page here. And again, he said many, many things. But before we go any further, perhaps we should just review the World Peace Treaty, because this is a starting point in a way. It doesn't have to be, but eventually this is what the Keshe Foundation systems and the mission of Mr. Keshe as a universal teacher, in a way, to bring this planet into a permanent peaceful condition and to unite or join more openly with the universal community. So that's what it's all about. But again, being peaceful is part of the prerequisite for you to go in and join this. And we can't go in as we are today with the killing and the destruction that we seem to be involved in. And even as I speak, the Americans have again gone after another country, probably in collaboration with others. But this is a condition that's been going on, and this is a condition that is changing. Again, maybe the next decade, the next 20 years, or the next century, we'll start to see the changes more and more as our behavior is being modified by the fields, by the game, and by systems, and even the 3I, and that's part of it. But before we go any further, let's read our World Peace Treaty. Remember, we're introducing a new science, a new ethos, and a new language. And this is the Keshe World Peace Treaty. When I first saw it, I thought it was rather simple, but this is the document if people prefer to sign a document. But of course, you can sign it with the pen of your energy or your soul. And maybe we'll start here just reconfirming our ethos. We're introducing the new science, the new ethos, where the stronger feeds the weaker, the stronger doesn't take from the weaker and elevates the weaker. And of course, a new language, and this is the language of exchanging energies, I believe, but also the language of peace and love. Would anyone like to read the World Peace Treaty? Is anyone able to see it, to be able to read it? And you don't have to be an angel to read it. As we know, we're all hopefully becoming more enlightened or more peaceful, and those two are definitely connected. And that's probably why we see it on the game. The more enlightened you are, the more peaceful you should be. And the more peaceful you are, I think the more enlightened you are. We don't have to fight for things in the matter state or in the energy state as well. Anyone? And just to mention, Gail, I wasn't having trouble starting the video. Thank you for asking. Alex has requested about a 20-second delay because he likes to record on multiple devices. So that's the reason for the initial delay, if I've done it right. Usually we go
Glad to hear that.
Yes, me too, because sometimes you test the video before you start the program, and then when you go to pull it up the second time, it won't play. These are little mysteries, but I know Rick has dealt with that. I've dealt with that. Perhaps Alex has as well. Okay, back to our World Peace Treaty. Shall we read it together? Would anyone like to join me? We, as citizens of the earth from this moment on, except to lay down all tools of aggression and war. We shall never think about getting involved or incite war or develop or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. And to this we all agree and swear with our, you can delete as appropriate, our nation, our territory, our council, our religion, our city, our town, our body, and our souls. Simply put your name and signature. And again, on behalf of the nation, the territory, the council, the religion, again, everything is being touched by these fields and is going to be moved into a permanent peaceful condition. I just added that. And have it witnessed, as you would any sort of formal document or treaty you may sign. After signing this treaty, be proud to display this certificate wherever you consider being important to you, that everyone can see and know your ethos to fellow men and the mankind and other created beauties of the Creator. Again, you've just created a reactor. This is between you and your consciousness or your soul, if we could call it that. Or I know in the universe they don't refer to it as a soul, they refer to it as a center, your central energies, or the triangle perhaps, where we see the free plasma in the center. And of course, it necessarily doesn't have to be in the center. But this is a document you can sign and begin that journey on peace, perhaps putting less things in your backpack as we start to become peaceful. And again, I've emphasized the idea that we probably are offending more in our thinking and our speaking than our actual acting. And of course, we know we're creating plasmas and we're creating energies and fields when we think wrong. As Mr. Keshe said, if you don't think wrong, then you won't speak wrong and you won't do wrong. But it's for each one of us to apply it. And this is the gift of the three wise men, which came at the Christmas time. And of course, as we now understand, I missed it. I thought they were matter state gifts and of course participated in the matter state of giving. Even though I faded from that, I kind of caught on. It was more of a commercial endeavor than anything else, but certainly it's been revealed through the Keshe Foundation. But the actual gifts of the three wise men were the thinking good and speaking good and acting good. But again, it's easier said than done, and it's for you to apply. But hopefully we're all moving into becoming more peaceful. And that's part of this new game. And I'll just bring up this game called Peace and Enlightenment, if I can. The game of peace and enlightenment. Here's one. I think I have a couple. But the latest version, and this is a beta version of the game called Peace and Enlightenment. I think I traveled somewhere. I might be able to pick something up. No. But you will travel around to the various countries. I think it's getting you quite familiar with the map of the planet. You travel there. You can see that the game, if you want to read about what, you can go to the manual, and it just gives you some basic ideas about the game. Everything hasn't been explained. The game will change. One of the beauties of this game is you can actually earn Keshe coins, which you can spend in the Keshe Foundation store or perhaps trade with others. Let's just go to the store if we can. And you can see there's many different things going on in the store. But as Mr. Keshe also said, it was not to play the game for money. It's more probably about service and understanding the economies, and there's different levels. I've really never played a game before. This is the first one, and I think I've adapted to it a little bit. I've kept it going on the iPad, and as I said earlier, when I was on hold to one of the banks yesterday, I just let the game play. In that 20 minutes, I was sort of doing other things and playing the game while I was waiting for a representative to take care of my call. So many things we can learn, I think, through this. And again, we don't fully understand it. On this side, you have your enlightenment, you have your knowledge. And of course, as I understand it, your knowledge increases as you take the daily. One of the ways is to take the quiz. So you can open this quiz. Now, I've already completed it for today, so I'll have to come back tomorrow. It's just a multiple choice of about five questions perhaps, and this helps to increase your enlightenment. So as you can see, I just over a half of 1% on knowledge. I mean, that's what I meant, knowledge. Here's the enlightenment. Here's your energy. And of course, if you're going to travel, we'll just do a quick demonstration somewhere if we could. Here's an energy drink that you can, but you have to travel to Oman. So if we say travel, it's going to ask me, how would you like to travel to Oman to receive the 10 energy drinks or a plus 10 energy drinks? There's 3 levels, a 1, a 5, and a 10. So this means travel by normal aircraft, and this means transmutation, which you arrive instantly, but you become eligible in another minute or two, but your arrival is instantaneous, as would be any transmutation. Here I've accumulated some plasmas, so I have 37 plasmas. You need 1 to transmute or to use the transmutation. And so I've already arrived, and now I'm going to rest. And that's what's recommended for, I believe, maybe not for first time or beginners at this game. And we'll see in a minute and 47 seconds that there'll be something for me to retrieve there. Perhaps that energy drink, or maybe there's 2 or other things. There's no legend or legend for the different symbols on the game. We're sort of learning as we go. And again, this is teaching you to be peaceful and enlightened. And I think Mr. Keshe, as he's been saying in the One Nation Network, they'll be embedding certain things within the One Nation Network, including this game, but there'll be pulses going on within that game or within the One Nation Network. Again, I was just imagining I traveled to Oman. I want a kebab or something like that. I'm hungry in the physicality. I'm playing the game. I'd like a beef kebab or something. So I take my wallet out and I take 2 pennies and I order a kebab while I'm in Oman. And I don't actually get the physical kebab, but I get the energy through the system of that kebab, and I become satisfied. And I think it'll happen this way, in a way, perhaps once they connect the cosmic ray antennas to this game. Well, it's not connected to the game. It'll be connected to the One Nation Network. And maybe I should just show that One Nation Network. Any questions? Has anyone played the game? As I said, I haven't been a game player, but it's rather easy to sign up for. And we actually, there is a tutorial that Ed has put together, which
It'll teach you patience because you have to
teaches you,
wait.
it teaches you patience, okay?
Absolutely, because you see, when you're playing the game, and then you see like a PMU, which is a power unit. I can't remember, but you want to go there, but you got to wait a minute. So it teaches you patience while your energy builds. What
Okay,
I do is I play it until the energy is gone, then go to something else and come back in an hour and play it again. And if
okay.
you leave it sit overnight, your energy builds right up to the top. But you got to build your consciousness up first.
And if you go in, everyone, once you've signed up for the game, you have an inventory, and you need energy drinks to travel. Like if you need to replenish your energy, you can do that. If I click this, the 1 plus the small energy drink, it'll add a bit to my energy in my bar menu over here on the left. But you can see there's 2 times energy regen. I'm not sure what that is. Then there's books of wisdom and books of meditation. So if we go over back to our game in a way, we see 1, this would be the book of meditation, but only at the strength of 1. There's also a 5 and there's also a 10, I believe. And the same
The
with
two
the
times the 2 times regen means you regenerate twice as fast if you have enough consciousness.
Okay, and the rule of thumb is the regeneration, because I know in my energy, if I have 75% now and I wanted to travel by the airplane, I would then use up 15% of my energy, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so yesterday when I was playing the game, I had 2 times regen for about an hour and a half. That must mean, and if you just wait, you get what, 1% every 5 minutes or something. But this thing, whatever it was doing, it was doubling the energy recovery rate, I believe. It said 2 times energy regen. We're just learning about the game. The game is in a beta test mode, as you can see in the right-hand corner, beta 0.644. We thank the developers, and we continue to give energy to the developers. There'll be much, much more added to this game. And as I said, there's probably now or in the future, there'll be hidden technologies embedded within this game to enhance that process of you becoming peaceful and enlightened. And you're teaching yourself at the same time. This will take a lot of burden off teachers, let's say, because now you become to enlighten yourself or teach yourself to become peaceful. And it can be played, as I understand it, from children to grandparents. So anyone can play the game, and especially in areas, as Mr. Keshe said, down the road after March 21st, if the official version is launched at that time, you'll be able to earn up to 2 Keshe coins per month, which will be spent in the store or perhaps traded among others. I'm not sure how the whole thing, as I said, I've never played a game. This is the first one. Maybe I've tried when they had those handheld things with the toggle sticks, but I didn't take to it very well. But I do like the idea of teaching oneself to become peaceful and teaching oneself to become enlightened. This obviously builds trust in yourself and confidence, which is a couple of the things some of us are lacking as well. So you can take the quiz, and they're going to be putting in more questions, and many of the questions will come actually out of the Knowledge Seekers workshops, if I understand that. They're not, some are related to the game and so on. So that's just one way to start this whole process. And as he said, we need a number of players, the more the better. And this game is in its beta test, as I said, but if we go to the Keshe Foundation store, we can look at where this game is going to be embedded, and it's going to be embedded into this One Nation Network, or the ONN system. And as I said, I think if you go to Mexico and you'd like to have a taco in this game, perhaps even when the cosmic ray is added, antennas, you can order a taco for a penny. You won't get the physical taco. You'll get the energy of the taco. And then, I don't know if you'll wear a headphone or you'll just some earphones. Perhaps you will have a vision of Mexico in the what we call the real dream state, fully awake, but you're sort of having some sort of interaction with magnetic fields in the brain that this system could cause, because it's a cosmic ray antenna. Remember, those cosmic rays are what we call creator rays. So they can create anything if you know how to play. But as Mr. Keshe said, knowledge seekers are pretty far from this, and step by step, he's releasing more and more of the knowledge of this interaction of cosmic rays with everything else and creating it. But certainly the cosmic, the C14 is being created within the Keshe Foundation. And that's what we've shown or the foundation is shown in Beijing. That was energy. And that's the beauty of what we're doing now to understand this twinity of the energy and the matter. Again, I think they're both the same. Remember, energy has mass, but the matter has mass and weight. So all of the difference is between the energy and the matter, it has taken on some weight or some inertia, as we call it. So once we understand this, we can easily move between matter state and energy. And this is what he's saying. Man will come to understand the energy of matter will rise. We'll get to understand that right now we're fighting for matter state, but hopefully once we understand the energy dimension, this twinity of energy and matter state, people will start to be quite enamored and open up this whole energy dimension. Remember, Mr. Keshe says we're opening up the mystery of the matter state of the entity to its energies. So again, I think the principal energy is found in the matter state. It's just taken on inertia or weight. That's the only difference. And if you learn how to release that or balance it, you go right back into the energy dimension. So playing this game, I think will get you familiar with the planet. You've traveled there before. And once we start using the cosmic rays, perhaps, again, this is just, I want to be impartial. This is just what I'm dreaming about. Maybe others have a different dream on this game, if you'd like to share it with us. So that's what I'm thinking, but this is a way, and they're looking for 10,000 units. And of course, Mr. Keshe said this whole thing with the Zoom and what is being sponsored by the Keshe Foundation just doesn't come out of the sky. It comes from donations, and he's again encouraging people to continue to support the Keshe Foundation in every way, shape, and form you can to bring this to a reality that the foundation can stay unencumbered, let's say, by some of the other structures who would not like to see this whole process proceed. And as he said, we know it won't be easy, but certainly it is promised. And it was beautiful to hear what he said about the cars as he met with a drone company in China and saying, your batteries are obsolete, your propellers are obsolete, your drones are obsolete. And I think this might tie into what Elon Musk said. There's an announcement, a major announcement on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. We'll have to see if he actually comes through. But Mr. Keshe said, we're going to offer you a car. And maybe we should hear that. But Ed made a nice little cute video that will play. Maybe we'll go to the announcements. Any thoughts from anyone about the game, about the One Nation Network? And of course, the Ubisoft is coming out as well. I think they're being distributed right now. If we go back to the, let's see if we can, I don't know if they're showing a picture of this. It's 40 years of development through the Keshe Foundation. Let's just see if we find that, but if not, this is not the exact one that we saw pictures of. Maybe it is in there. I haven't really looked. But in addition to the, and of course, as when the game becomes official, you will need an official wallet to gather your 2 Keshe coins a month. It won't be easy. And of course, as he said, the game is made to be played rather slowly. But in addition, this is your wallet. This is your One Nation Network. In addition, they're restarting the transmutation or transmission sessions, I guess. And these sessions will be launched. There's 3 of them scheduled, January, February, and March. And they're 500 per 500 euro plus the value added tax per session. But there is a discount if you order all 3. I believe it's the 1350 euro. So you'll save approximately 150 euro plus any of the conversion exchange rates that you may experience. But again, this is helping to keep the Keshe Foundation free. Not everyone is able to participate in these, and hopefully we can all continue in the workshops as well. Continue to play the game. It's all connected. As he said in these transmutation sessions, and I tried to bring this up on my PowerPoint, Alex, you're going to have to give me a couple lessons on PowerPoint, but I don't know, there's a title thing here. It just wasn't. But anyway, it says here these sessions, and maybe we can see it right on the actual store. Remember, our store is also going to Shopify coming up in the very near future. So a lot of waves are moving, energies are moving around the Keshe Foundation between Mark Ray's in China and other technologies and many, many things in the background. As he said, we're only privy to about 5% of what the foundation is doing. So let's go back. Okay, so these sessions are launched as part of the transition of emotion to be in line with the launch of Peace and Enlightenment game released last month. These sessions are not transmutation sessions. Thank you for correcting me earlier, Alex. We advise that those who join these sessions to be registered for the Peace and Enlightenment game, as we might test the transfer of emotion through cosmic ray technology while the participants are playing the game. Yes, this is exactly what I thought, and this is the first time I'm really reading this. So I think there's hidden technologies within this game. Maybe not the beta version, maybe so. But again, this is how you arrive in Mexico, you've had your taco, and now your wife says she has a headache. So you can receive some aspirin, perhaps, if you needed that, or head pressure relief through the foundation and order it. You won't get an actual tablet, but you'll get the energy of the aspirin, perhaps. And then your wife's headache is gone and you can have an enjoyable evening together. And I think this could happen pretty much instantaneously as you order it. And this is the way, as he said, the food and the medicine will be delivered through this network. This is what Mr. Keshe did when he first went to the world leaders on this planet in around the year 2000. And he said, I can show the people on this planet how to feed themselves and how to generate their own power. And of course, that was forbidden at the time. They didn't want people to have a knowledge of being able to feed themselves or to generate their own power. But now we're seeing it's coming around 25 years later and even much more powerful, probably, than what was had been developed back in the year 2000. As Mr. Keshe said, these systems are under constant development, and most of them are just in their infancy. So I would consider the game being in its infancy as well. But you'll need a wallet. You won't need a One Nation network, but hopefully, if you have the funds, you can help to support that to even under the ocean or on the moon, perhaps. I know this sounds, again, quite preposterous, but I think Mr. Keshe is talking to some of the space agencies, the friendlier ones with the foundation, perhaps even delivering one of these. I know China wants to be on the moon very soon. So perhaps NASA or China or so on. And of course, most of the governments in the West are sort of falling into the hand of the Keshe Foundation in a way because of their need for some of these rare earth materials from copper to zinc and magnets and other things. And the Chinese have gotten trapped themselves in a way in the matter state, as he said, by cornering or getting a huge percentage of certain markets. And this will allow the West that will need some of these things, unless they move their factories into China, they won't have access. So the Keshe Foundation will be doing exactly what they showed there in Beijing on May 10th to 12th, providing perhaps some materials that are needed for industry or other things. Definitely not for military or harmful purposes, as I understand it. Anyone want to make a comment? Perhaps we should go to the announcements if we can. And here Mr. Keshe described his own technology. As he said, he knows it from the bottom brick up to the top and the top brick down to the bottom. All right, let's go to our workshop then. And we'll just go where, again, this is getplasma.org. You can find that and you can join the waiting list. Maybe I should put up the game of peace and enlightenment. This is something Ed has made. We'll put this in the chat. Let's see if we can do that. And you can sort of follow and get yourself started on this enlightenment game. And there it is. Thank you, Ed. And of course, you can find many of the workshops on his website as well. Any questions or comments or mysteries anyone's trying to solve? Anything they'd like to share? Okay. Let's go to the workshop and feel free to, oh, we need to bring it up to a certain point here, I think. Oh, around 114. Let's see if we're around there. Yeah, 113. Let's see if we can start here.
YouTube video into our chats here. It's the first link called Peace and Enlightenment Game Explanation from Mr. Keshe. And so you can click on that to get the other half of the video. And furthermore, there's a link for the tutorial from Ed for the game of Peace and Enlightenment. And that's quite interesting as well, and gives the basics on how to get through the game and some of the things that you need to know to do that. I don't think we have time today to have a look at that, so let's go to Mr. Keshe and take it from there. Hello, Mr. Keshe. Are you ready to go?
Yes, thank you very much. This is very interesting, and thank you for playing it. This is the beginning, as I said. Last week you had the financial part, and this week, today, we announced what's going to happen with the scientific side. This game can be played in 48 languages at the moment. Those of you who joined straight away and you've been trying to join in past week, you showed us the problems. As I said, this next 3 months is sorting out the problems. We saw the first problems, and the master behind us worked very hard to sort out the problems. Some of you with Gmail can connect, and some of you with Gmail cannot connect, and a lot of other things, which has brought sleepless nights for sorting these out. And gradually, we'll see more problems. We'll see where the weaknesses are, and they'll be eradicated and they'll be solved. But by June, at least, we solve majority of the problem. The whole idea of the cash coin is the beauty of its knowledge, what brings you. And the Keshe Foundation website, all our websites this week will be updated after the holidays with the link to the peace and what we call enlightenment games, most probably the tapes you listen to and how to register and the rest. And thank you very much, Ed, if you can make it more detailed where they need to register and process there and how to play the game will be helpful. And as we need to go to a few thousand, that most of the problems can be solved. And then gradually by 21st of March, international launch of this system will be done. You will see this connects to a lot of other things that in the future, we through this game will be modified, added for other things like when you go enlightenment, learning languages, how to connect to get food through the systems and the rest of it. You know, you get paid and while you're playing, you're receiving food through the same game as you play. These are what will be done in the future most probably, and you'll be enlightened with everything else. One of the most important things for us is try to join as many as we can, people to play this game. That we see the problems, we see what needs to be resolved, we see what needs to be added, and gradually we can put a team behind it that controls the whole structure. There is one point is that we are looking for experts in cryptocurrency in Keshe Foundation family. We are looking to recruit people who believe with us that they can be controllers and support of this program. We have a few, but we need many to be able to monitor. And we open channels very soon that you can register yourself, what your qualification is, what you can monitor. And to run this properly, we'll employ a number of people that full time will be their job to monitor the situation on the running of this game and the currency behind it. The whole purpose of this is even governments, as they pay the soldiers to play, have to accept the cash coin as a way to subsidize their lives. As I said, we have mined everything possible to support humanity for the next 100 years. The way it'll feed back to itself, the way it is there. Governments do not need national reserves of coins. Government are part of the reserve of the coins. I'll explain this in the coming time, as I've started explaining to officials and many, many people. We have to teach. We have to get people to understand the game of life has changed in the dimension of, in a way, nobody should die of hunger. In a way, nobody should die of, I cannot afford Medicare or medicine. We transfer these through the knowledge. We transfer this through understanding. We transfer the power of the energy where the matter needs it. And this is the beginning of the cycle. You had your Christmas present as a game. You open and you play with it. And this week you open the truth about what's going to happen in your life cycle, in your pockets, in the physical dimension, where life become, in a way, fun to play. As I always said, it's time to have fun being a human, being part of this society, and being able to live to enjoy.
He said this will become the sort of work of the man, is to operate in and around this cash coin and the rest of this. This will become a driver in a way for you to succeed and not live such a harsh life, if we can imagine that. So this is all part of the process. And as I said, I believe there is or will be hidden technologies embedded within this game. He won't reveal them, perhaps, but you may experience them, as is going to be, I believe, with the car. You may not be able to do it yourself, or perhaps there'll be some items you can retrofit in there yourself, but not actually reveal the secrets within the technology. But you will end up with a flying car, or hovering at least.
Please note, go to Keshe Foundation. If you're a student registering, there's an update on the registration side. Go there. Unfortunately, as you know, when we started the teaching some 10 years ago plus, we put a fee of $100, 100 euros per annual fee. Originally, if you remember, was 1,000. But due to huge increases in the cost and everything in past years, with your permission, we increased the tuition fee that it can at least cover for next 10 years, and we don't need to come back and increase it by this and that. So there's a increase justifying with all the costs which we have in the background. And when you register for a student
And of course, what he's talking about is there are certain people who've registered to be a student, a private student, let's say, and you have access to archives and other things. And the fee was at €100 per year, less than $10 a month, and plus the value added tax, of course. But that fee is now going up as we see everything on the increase, and this will allow them to keep that fee the same for the next number of years into the future. But again, the fee is minuscule compared to the knowledge, which is priceless. So just be aware of that. You have to apply to be a private student, and you'll get a confirmation and the rest. But just be aware, and of course, access to the archives and other things within the foundation. And we'll see where the student body is going this trimester. There's actually 3 different trimesters during the year that people can attend the classes.
And what we call fee, we have brought it in line with as part of the sales than donation, because these donations of teaching was creating a lot of problem for us, but internally we solve it. And the coins as a donation will change to purchase of coin. You can actually purchase, if you want, cash coins from the Keshe Foundation or through our sales in a coming time, maybe in the next 2 or 6 months. So our donation system has changed. Our structure of the Keshe Foundation, as I said before, has changed. We have gone into a headquarter-based subsidiaries that we can control everything in a very different way. Keshe Foundation Manufacturing will disappear as your main front face to new companies, but stays as the owner of the operation. So it becomes a headquarter base. These are because of the tax reasons we had to do this, by the orders and the things we had to face. Originally, Keshe Foundation Manufacturing was the mother owner of the European operation, and every subsidiary came to it. Now the mother stays away from any being touched, and subsidiaries become operational for their interactions, what they do, and the rest will be the same. We've done the same thing in China, the same thing, operations set up with market cooperation with the subsidiaries, and so it'll be the same. And as we become one in the coming time, the ownership of the Keshe Manufacturing in Austria, market corporation shares, the Chinese corporation of Keshe Foundation will be handed over to the Keshe Foundation International, which means no one owns it except the humanity. No wealth will be passed on to no one, but it will be brought in line that it stays the ownership of the humanity, the way the Keshe Foundation was set up from day one. I had the pleasure of speaking with one of the co-founder of the guy who set up, originally supported the very first angel supporter of the Keshe Foundation a couple of days ago. We speak once or twice a year. It's an old friendship, over 25 years. And he said, Mr. Keshe, you achieved what we set up 25 years together. 2 brothers set up the first pages of the Keshe Foundation 20 years ago. And we were talking and said, now you see what it's become. What we envisaged in the mandate of the Keshe Foundation now is becoming reality 20 years ago. And it's nice to see that how this thing has taken shape and how this coin, the operation of the Keshe Foundation, now has become a global operation in a very different way. Enjoy the game and don't play for the money of it. Enjoy it, that it brings enlightens you, and in the future a lot of knowledge will come through the system, through this game. Go to the Keshe Foundation. If anybody wants, we'll try to get this up this week, that they can tell them you don't need to look for the link. You go to the Keshe Foundation, it says Peace and Enlightenment Game. They can click, they can listen to introduction, they can listen to the presentation how to play. I hope Ed will do it in a very beautiful way, how to register and everything else, all the way down to how to play. Please do not teach them the cheats, even though sometimes it's fun to have.
That was actually a question that came up.
Any comments or thoughts? Did you think it was going to end up this way as a game, in a way? Teaching yourself to become peaceful and enlightened? Any thoughts? Anyone? Okay, and again, the support is desperately needed within the, not desperately, but continually needed within the Keshe Foundation. Maybe we'll go to about 1 hour and 35 minutes to the end. It was a short workshop in a way, very deep, but short. So perhaps we'll start here. Back in, we'll go to about 1 hour and 34 minutes, somewhere around here perhaps, and hear a bit more if we can. Any questions from anyone? Okay.
Near future, we pay ethical hackers to try to hack to see the problems. And I have supported the Keshe Foundation for millions and hundreds of thousands in past years. And the interesting enough is somebody asked me, you borrowed money, you asked for money to pay for the whatever, which.
Okay, and yeah, Mr. Keshe has reminded us that he's reached into his pocket for all these years. And I remember him saying at one time they looked at the donations and they received for the month, they received €6. So if you can help out in any way you can, maybe they'll match your giving, or this will allow you to give more, or something else could happen to you. But yeah, we need to keep the Keshe Foundation free for humanity and allow them to develop. And I think, as he said, none of the resources are wasted on vacations or expensive cars or anything like that. It's all put back in to develop the research of the foundation, as I understand it. So feel free to contribute early and often in whatever way, shape, or form you can.
Now we are defrauded. I said, what you put in there is not even a fraction of the percentage what Keshe Foundation owns and spends and operates. We cannot give you anything back on that till the fraud case is confirmed, because the account is frozen until the fraud is completed. Then whoever lent us money on the, when we ask for it, it will be returned to them once the court in Austria pushes the case through and we get the verdict and the accounts are open, and then we can pay through the account. You paid to account of Keshe Foundation, which is a legal entity and closed for the fraud. And we cannot pay from other side of the Keshe Foundation back to you, because it cannot be done. It's a company which is not related to each other. It's a different operation, different country, and it has to be resolved through the courts.
And again, if you're not familiar with what Mr. Keshe is saying here, apparently some people close to the foundation defrauded the foundation for millions, absconded to certain countries which were protecting them, and finally, after a number of years, the people have been found and the case is in the court. So during that time, Mr. Keshe has asked people to help, and they would pay back when their funds are recovered. It all depends again on how much is recovered and how much has been lost or spent. So this is what he's referring to. And again, it wasn't just the people close to the Keshe Foundation that defrauded the Keshe Foundation. Mr. Keshe indicated it was the world structure that defrauded the Keshe Foundation. So there was a much bigger players. These were just the front people that were used to pull that off. But as you'll hear, Mr. Keshe said he's very happy in a way that this has all happened.
It's now in the hand of the authorities in Austria. But every day costs thousands to run this operation. We never ask you anything to running of the foundation. What we ask you was for a specific project, and we're still running. So you can understand once this going, you're looking at about millions a year just for you to be free, not attached to anything, and no one can dictate you to live a free life. We need a lot of support. Try to support us the best way you can support us at the moment by the ONN systems and then donate it. This is the best way for us to operate. And
okay, and what is the ONN system? We were just looking at that in the Keshe Foundation store. It's called the One Nation Network. And this is where many things will be brought. Here it is right here, the One Nation Network. Right now it's €3,000 plus the value added tax. Plus, if you're in the United States, you'll be experiencing probably a 15% tariff, or again, another tax that's been imposed as of late. But that's, again, this is a gift to humanity. You will own it in a way. You'll receive some Keshe coins just by having it. But it's really a gift for humanity. So this is what he's saying. This is the best way you can help the foundation right now, is to purchase, and multiple people can purchase as well, and donate it back to the foundation, that they will find a place for it, as many cannot afford this sort of expense or outlay all at once.
Receive donations. At this one time, your donation, where it goes, is set. We have restructured in 2026. You will see, oh, I sent the fee for education came back. Go back and find out the new way which is set up. And you make a donation, you buy ONN unit, because we have to get 10,000 of these in the market. You can even pay, I paid €20 or €100 for purchase of ONN, and maybe you pay some today and some tomorrow, and it can come. But this way we can officially give the systems to the African nations, to the African people, to governments, and control it. We need, they say, what's the connection between this and the game? It's a big difference. This 10,000 minimum is needed to keep the network. That's you came, you play on your system is a different way than this. We need to get this 10,000 right across the planet, that no government can dictate. No one can dictate how humanity lives and how you spend your money, how you keep your saving, and the rest of it.
So it's a beautiful, well thought out system, and you can start to see how everything is coming together between the cosmic ray material, the coins, the stock, the game, the One Nation networks. And as he said, there's much more to these One Nation than anyone could think. So there's much more to be delivered through there. As he said, we're going to be and continue to be baffled by what will be released by the Keshe Foundation. Again, beyond the imagination of the man. As we saw with the waters that we released for the Dome of Peace, how could a simple water bring a balance to a planet? And how could a simple game, because there's other things hidden in there that man doesn't have the knowledge or understanding or maturity to see, perhaps, at this point. Hasn't been revealed totally. Any thoughts, any comments from anyone? But you're all being offered to interact with it. Just as he said, we're going to offer you the car.
We need a lot of financial support to get this project to its final leg in this year and the next few years. Some of you help us generously, but nothing is wasted. Everything for its own reason is delivered, done. And there's one thing which I keep on telling you, knowledge seekers, due to what happened to us in the past, we keep silent. You only see a fraction, very small amount of what's happening in the Keshe Foundation, because we do everything through knowledge seekers. Knowledge seekers are running everything, but quietly in the background. Nobody knows, but 95% of what goes on around the foundation, we keep it only to those who need to know and are involved in it. And one day if you hear it, you understand, now we understand what happened. We need a lot of financial support in any shape or form, but try to support us through the channels of what I call correct way. Soon we announce a new procedure for donations and that will change the position until we sort out our situation in what we call in Holland with ABN AMRO Bank and the fraud within the bank. You got to understand, once this court case settled, some of the major banks in Europe are set to pay huge penalties, not only to Keshe American, but to European Central Bank, because they ran fraudulent accounts.
So you see, this could be part of the delay through the system, that the banks are actually going to end up holding a much bigger liability than the actual funds that were taken. So this could be one of the reasons they'd like to see it delayed. It'll move forward, perhaps slower than we anticipate, but it will move.
Two of the banks actually run the accounts where the money from our account went into the same bank into another fraudulent account, which is criminal offense, and stands 500 million penalty by European Central Bank automatic. Now you understand the scale of the fraud, which was burdened us with, and I thank God happened, because it brought us in different way to do the things that we wanted to do, and where we are is exactly where we should have been. Any questions?
Well, first, Ed mentions in the chat here, Ed is the creator of the video with the Pinocchio character at the beginning. And he says, I chose the Pinocchio because in the story, his goal was to become a real boy. Our goal is to become a complete human being. So
That's nice. Thank you very much.
Let me see. We did have some.
But the problem is got a bigger nose than the Jewish person. It must be worse than them, a few of them put together.
I don't know if we want to get into that conversation. And only because you're half Jewish, you can get away with that. We had a question from Meta Dolgan, who asks, is carbon-14 a cosmic ray?
It is in its field. Yes, we produce it heavily. We understand. We have developed the technology for producing carbon-14, and it's part of the structure of the work of the Keshe Foundation.
Is it part of the creation of matter from rays technology?
In a way, it's part of the universal work. It's not part of our work. We just understand how the universe works.
So again, in the Keshe Foundation, we're not really discovering anything new. We're just replicating the creation process in the universe, or copying it, if you want to put it that way. So it's a replication of the work that's done in the universe, the way it's done, not through a big bang, but a buildup from small to matter state, perhaps. And this is what was shown. Any comments? Any thoughts?
More and more. There's a lot of hidden knowledge in the game of the fields, and it takes me every few weeks or months to explain more in detail to knowledge, because we use it for them to understand more and more. Everything in the creation is based on the work of the interaction of the fields. It's like some of you have received the cosmic ray balls.
We'll just stop right here. And again, just for those who may, I think all of us here are familiar with it, but if we can just bring up the store again, let's see where it is. Perhaps it's behind this. No, it's over here. And just bring up the store. And this is what Mr. Keshe is going to address right now, is the cosmic ray balls, which is this offering here. Again, the cosmic ray, the coin in the stock, the coin and the cosmic ray ball is already valued at 1,000 euro. Mr. Keshe is suggesting the mark ray value will also be at 1,000 eventually down the road. That could be years and years away, but right now it's at, I think, about 6 pennies, the stock. But the cosmic ray ball and the coin are both valued, and I think they'll keep their value. It's not a speculative instrument per se. But in the future, apparently these cosmic ray balls will be traded as well, or in exchange for other things. Again, I think this game is tied into, in a way, teaching us to, when we actually will do it or do more of it, let's say, than we're doing now, as far as this moving and gaining confidence in the rest of this. Okay, let's go back to our workshop. So he explains that, and he's explained this before, that the material, it's an actual live entity within that cosmic ray ball, and the material does change color and does move in and out, apparently, and exchanging with its environment. So let's hear what he said. Again, this person, this knowledge seeker, I would think, had sent the ball back to the foundation, thinking that there was something wrong.
And then write to me, oh, it changed color. It increased. Now it's a full ball. Now half of it is gone. It leaked out. Then it means you haven't understood what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a live entity. In there, it eats, it creates matter, it does everything else. It's just that your wall has more active life than the others because you keep it in the fields where there is an interaction. Chinese guys sent a ball back. Mine is half full. I said, better send it back. We haven't understood the knowledge. So carbon-14 is the cornerstone of the energies of the creator. But you have to understand how it's created. One day I explain in detail as part of the teaching. Any other question?
Let me see here. We have another question in YouTube. Let's find it here.
So as he said, one day I explained in detail as part of the teaching. So step by step, spoon by spoon, we're being opened up to this understanding. But again, we're probably not mature enough to handle this technology and apply it in the correct way. So that's why he say we're offering you he's not showing you how to make cosmic ray material. He's offering you the cosmic ray ball. And I think it's the same with many of the systems in the Keshe Foundation, like this potential car that's coming out. Again, the technology is being kept and protected within the Keshe Foundation, even for artisans that join. Mr. Keshe had said you'll have to sign a non-disclosure agreement as far as revealing how you've applied some of this plasma technology to your product. So even the artisans will not be able to share. But over time and in time, and as we discover more, the knowledge, and as we mature and become enlightened, we'll be able to use this knowledge.
Everybody's asleep or still not sober enough.
Have to go back into my, okay, there it is. From Ascension, in the May 2025 presentation of the creation of elements by the fields, Mr. Keshe said one of the spinning reactors was not GANs. Was it caustic? Was it GANs of GANs? Is GANs of GANs cosmic rays? Thanks.
No, it wasn't. It was especially said that way because you got to understand, we have what we call clever dicks around Keshe Foundation, and especially some Chinese who are trying to say they understand more than the Keshe Foundation. So came in and said in the presentation in China, in Beijing, that these are all this reactors, this, and then we said no. The reactor, what we call reactor 4, was set up
And again, just to remind you, that was the intro video we played today, the creation of materials through fields. Again, they're showing the cosmic ray material locked into the strength of gold, but yet there's still two more steps to convert it into something you can sell, which Mr. Keshe encouraged you to try, but he said you'll never figure it out.
To confirm that he's talking a lot of nonsense. Reactor 4 was set up deliberately, specifically to show if you don't create a condition of the fields, there is no matter, and it showed. So the field has it. This is okay. I'll open something to you. Maybe it's a gift for New Year. In a coming time, we'll offer you vehicles, cars. We offer you, in a way, technology, space technology, that you carried in a suitcase. A system like what you call.
Okay, and I don't know if everyone's seen Ed's beautiful, it's only about a 40-second video of what he envisioned, perhaps. Let's just see if we can get this to launch. And this is something, I know Mr. Keshe said he would show the UFO in Iran a year or more ago, and that conference never happened because of the war or the threat of war and the rest. I guess it never really worked out. So let's see if we can just bring this back. And this is just another beauty that Ed sort of created. All right, that's not playing. Let me close it and bring it back again and see if we can get it to play. Try one more time. And this time, Gail, it definitely is not playing. Here it is. It's the future. And as he said, Mr. Keshe said, what he showed in Beijing as the particles fell on the ground or on the floor or on the tables or in the spoons, he said if you had a magnetic field there, these particles would actually, you set up a configuration of a structure, the particles will not drop to the ground or the table or the spoon. They would actually be attracted by the magnetic field of whatever you're setting up, perhaps a wall or perhaps something else. A craft like we see right here. Okay, we're going to go back and continue. Any thoughts? Any questions? I know it is beyond, but you have seen it on cartoons and other places in the past, and in many of the sci-fi movies.
Normal briefcase, which we used to carry in 1980s, something that size, if you can remember, where you can open it and place it on the table. You decide the size of the vehicle, and you can create your car at the spot. You can create your system on the spot. So this technology
and just to say, in the past, when he was talking about the future of this technology, he said people would be giving away their homes. He didn't go into a detail about that, but apparently if you can create a structure, a temporary structure, or even permanent, and when you're ready to move, whether it's a day or week, you can collapse that structure right back into this sort of briefcase-looking device and carry it with you wherever you go. It'll probably be enhanced even further. So again, beyond our current imagination of what is possible.
Is part of our work, and maybe in 2026, 2027, latter part will be offered, where you missed a lot of things in that. Just 1 second, please. Uh, this is again what I explained in the first part of today's teaching. You look for the matter, we look for a different thing. You saw the material landing on the table. We saw gold falling on the mountains in North China. We observed where the machine, the machine was inside, gold was bulking up on the balcony outside behind the window. But you have to understand something very simple.
And of course, as Mr. Keshe said, this has been confirmed multiple times by the top scientists in China and the military and the rest, and confirmed by other scientists outside of China, that exact material. And it's been done before. As he said, they went to a mine and so on and so forth. So it's an obsolete technology. Again, not to me. I've never used any technology like that. But the Keshe Foundation has moved way past spinning reactors. But as you can see with the 3i, as he said, it's kind of an antique system, but it still works. And it's been working quite well.
And that is, if I change the field, this material will not land on the table, will be hovering, as he called it, levitating, and then I can dictate the strength of it, and then it'll manifest itself as a vehicle, a UFO. And this is what will be offered. We'll change the automotive industry. There's no auto, it will plasma motive, whatever you call it, very soon. Because you don't need the engine. I was one of Dolly's on the line, he knows what I'm talking about, because we were with a very powerful company past few days, specialized in drone, very, what do you call it, part of the national defense of a nation. And I said, your drones are obsolete. Sitting there, I can't remember, 8, 10 people, maybe more or less, after a specialist all in the meeting. And I said to them, your drones are obsolete. You have all these propellers, forget about it. You have all this lifting and weight limit, forget about it.
Anyway, perhaps we'll stop it there. Any thoughts or questions anyone wants to bring? Maybe we'll go back to the beginning of the teaching and showing how the problem that's developing today, and you see the increase in the price of gold and other rare earth materials. Mr. Keshe goes through and explains it quite well. So let me just see where we're going to start that, if I can. It might take a minute because I'm not sure of that particular position. So I'm just going to find that. Any thoughts while we're just waiting for that? Please feel free. Okay, let's go to around 1248. I think somewhere around here. And we'll just listen as Mr. Keshe explains the dilemma that some of the nations are in, and how China has, in a way, cornered some of the markets in materials. And as they say, if you move to China, you can build your factory, we'll supply you, if it's not for making weapons, the materials you need, but they're not releasing much. And this is, well, in a way, China, by falling into this matter state trap of the materials, now the energy dimension of the Keshe Foundation will be shown to the Western governments. So we're going to see a lot. But as far as the drone, as Mr. Keshe said, you'll see these drones with no propellers and no batteries and the rest coming out of China. He said a number of workshops ago, he knows the future of the drones. And apparently they had quite a high-level meeting with probably one of the biggest or more prominent drone companies, or maybe even a military, probably not in the military, but sharing the technology with the drone company. And again, whether they'll be given it to be played with on their own, I don't think so. I think some of these drone technologies, again, just like the car, just like some of the other things, will be preset for whatever manufacturer would like to create a hovering or a flying car or UFO or something else. It won't be shared openly. it'll be protected because we just haven't matured or haven't become enlightened or haven't understood enough yet at this point. Any thoughts or comments? But just an amazing offer of a flying car.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 623rd Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday.
And we'll cover this just up to the top of the hour, the 9 p.m. Central European time, and we'll do the Dome of Peace at that point for a few minutes. And Alex, are we coming along there? Anything we can do to assist? Or I'm looking around maybe a bit after the top of the hour, if that works for you. I'm sure you'll let us know.
January 1st, 2026, first day of the new year of 2026. It happens to be midnight where I am, and the fireworks are going off in the background. And here we are with the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Education Department, part of the public teachings in English. My name is Rick Crammond. I'll be your host once again in this weekly series of workshops. And once again, we have Mr. Mayran Keshe as our main presenter here. And I believe he's ready to go with another New Year's workshop, Mr. Keshe. We've done this before. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good day to you as usual, wherever and whenever you listen to the Series of Knowledge from Keshe Foundation Institute.
Feel free to stop it at any time, ask a question or ask for clarification or share with us your enlightenment.
We welcome you back. And those of you who are believers in the path of Christ, Happy New Year to you. And I hope it'll be a wonderful year. It'll be a turbulent year this year. Our forecast is change in many dimensions. In a way, human race will go through a promised change this year. We'll see a lot of old things will break down, what we got used to. And a new version of the same thing will come up for a time, and we'll see fall of regimes. We see fall of regimes of economy and commerce. We'll see the end of man valuing what Earth possesses, and man will start valuing what the universe possesses. This will come, as I always said, this technology will not be accepted just because of its beauty, but because of the fear of annihilation of man, be it in the dimension of life, be it in the dimension of economy, be it in the dimension of what we build our lives around it. And we all looked in a different direction and dimension, and we always thought that this will happen, that happen. And as I always said, I sat in the background, watched a lot of things, moved the Keshe Foundation to Chinese corporations, and washed our hand with the West, knowing that the trigger point of the change will come from China. We most probably in the next few weeks will see collapse of economies. Many people, most probably some of you will lose all your livelihoods, and many of you will build a new future. It's set to change, but the change is not what we set to see. In early times, in 2000, I was sitting in a house in the center of Kinshasa, and I sat with the Minister of Transport of the nation at his house with his wife and discussed what is the future. He explained to me something very interesting. And at that point, I said, everything has changed and the West is blind to what is to come. And 2026, more or less 25 years when my eyes open to what is happening in the West, most of us will open our eyes to see what is about to come. What we valued will bring us to crisis, and what crisis comes will bring us joy of the freedom and many, many other things. I traveled with a minister in his car. He said, we go to the ministry, I have something to do. Because the president of the nation at that time said, Keshe, is too important to be in the public hotels, so he appointed a minister to look after me while I was in the country, and I always stayed in his house whenever I traveled to Kinshasa. He said to me, Mehran, something strange has happened. I said, what? He said, the reason was for it that we were driving down and there was a Chinese man standing and there were a lot of blacks working. I said, what's going on with this Chinese man? He said, oh, he's supervising. I said, what do you mean he's supervising? He said, American, the British, and the Canadian dug a big hole in this country and they dug all the copper out of the mine. And when they couldn't get it, wasn't worthwhile, they flooded it. It's a big lake. I said, yes. He said, the Chinese have come. They have promised us, and they have started, this is part of what you saw, emptying the lake. Many people have lost their livelihood because it's been there for years and everything else, but they said they're going to take copper out of this mine, which is absolutely drained by the Europeans. They are building 1,000 schools, 100 hospitals, 1,500 kilometers of road directly from the mine to the port. And they have agreed that for every Chinese man, there will be 4 Africans who will be taught what to do, how to build, and how to operate. We are here as supervisors.
So he's just going through the scenario that China has taken over the last number of years and how they sort of cornered a number of markets on the rare earth, from the copper up to the zinc and the other things. Even though it's still available, it apparently is getting rarer. And this is how Mr. Keshe says this is actually a benefit to humanity, that China has actually done this.
They pay us the current prices of the copper, and we take 50% of it as cash for the building of the nation, and 50% they do building roads, houses, and everything else which was promised. Then they started it. And I said, they're going to control everything in rare earth materials, at that time copper. I watched this across Africa. As I traveled around Africa, Chinese repeated again and again. But a lot of Africans, Chinese who came to Africa, their workers and everything else, they saw prosperity and they stayed behind. They brought their children and their family. And mainly if you're Africa, you know what I'm talking about, started chicken farms, because it was a big problem for the Africans. Because most.
And again, it was put forth as a win-win, and I think in a way it was, but apparently it might have gone sideways in the interim. But this is what China was saying: it'll be a win-win. We're not going to give you just 5 or 10% or 20 just for your president, but we're going to share the wealth and build some things. But again, the British did the same with the mining. They built some railroads, and of course the railroad only went from the mine to the port, so they could move the material out of the country and bring it back to refine it. So the same game apparently is being played by China, and people are not going to accept this, it sounds like.
So the chicken farms is controlled by the Africans, by the Chinese, sorry. And now we see this year. As of today, not a single industry in the world which will not be touched, not a single one of us, which will not be touched by the material which China controls. As of today, there is no more silver in the market to sell. They want it for industrial organization, and they will not export a single silver gram of it. Very clever. Many people thought they want to control. No. They control 70-80% of the metals, precious metals, zinc, copper, and everything else. Again, people thought they want to control. But what the West has not come to be aware of, we speak about companies like Tesla, Samsung, and the rest, they cannot operate without silver, is very simple. They don't say you go bankrupt. They don't say that you are finished. They say, like to Samsung, as we all of us know, you want to run your business, open a factory in China. We give you all the materials. There is.
And that's what I was reading a headline this morning, that apparently they've already taken out of Venezuela 800 tons of silver. So that would, again, I don't know if that's just something someone said in the rest of this, but they're in desperate need. And Mr. Keshe goes on to explain how much silver is needed in a missile, for example.
No restriction. They're transferring officially all the industrial revolution into China. Tesla has no problem if builds everything in China and export from China. There is no shortage. Samsung can do all these telephones and communication systems as long as they produce in China. There is no limitation. For outside there is. But this brings another, what we call revolution, where people will react internationally as they lose their jobs. This will create a lot of jobs in China in 2026. But all this goes back to the principle of the Keshe Foundation technology, science, development, and the rest of it. The Americans, the British, the Iranians, the Chinese, all played with the matter state.
So this is how that energy dimension apparently is going to get introduced into science and into the real work that, as Mr. Keshe said, we're moving into the real work of the universe, which is the interaction of the fields. So the West, being desperate for the material, is going to be, in a way, wanting to, and humanity will celebrate this understanding of the energy, and matter is equal. Energy has the mass, matter has the mass and the weight, and again, the energy is just the same energy with the attachment of inertia or weight to it, as I'm seeing it, as I'm understanding this. So it's the exact same energy. And this is why he keeps saying we're going to show the energy of the matter.
And now that the harsh time will come, especially for the West, there is no better opportunity than the man to show the power of the energy of that matter. The evolution in the science in 2026 will come when the man accepts the trinity of the matter and energy. And nobody has served us better than the Chinese government, where they have spent billions controlling all the rare earth materials. They got stuck, like the rest of humanity, with the matter state.
Yes.
Is that the Trinity or the twinity?
Twinity.
Twinity, okay.
Yeah, energy equal to matter. Or the energy has mass, the matter has mass and weight. The energy has no weight, but it's the same. It's just brought on some inertia and manifested itself in the physicality. So what will happen is people will become more enamored with the energy side, realizing that comes first, and that's what's needed to create the matter as I'm seeing it. Anyone else want to add into this? We're about to go to the Dome of Peace. We're going to let you finish it up, but let's go back to Mr. Keshe if there's no further comments.
Not understanding a monster amongst you knowledge seekers known as the energy of the matter will rise. This is why we brought the cash coin. This is why we set up, as you heard, the structure of the Universal Council. Starting from today, you will see the nations of the West will get around this cash technology because they need the material. We showed it nowhere else publicly except, especially in China, May of last year. Conversion of energy to mass. Confirmation and rejection of the wave theory, and bringing the knowledge of the man to existence, where the field of the universe create the matter, and where man got stuck with that matter and he forgot about the wave. And in conversion and creation, we use that wave to create more matter without relying on the other side. In a way, the theory of what we call the funny thing, which when one moves, the other side moves. Now the matter state is so heavily will burden on the Chinese nation that the West will move forward by leaps of hundreds of years in the next decade or so. As gradually they understand China is lumbered with one of the heaviest that's ever could imagine by man.
Okay, we'll let you finish that up. We're about halfway through the teaching part. But as he said, we're trying to move away from the matter state. That's for the children to play with, and we're trying to understand more of the energy dimension, and understanding more of the energy dimension is a part of creating the Dome of Peace in a way, even though it has a couple components to it. One is matter state, which we release Gans waters, and the other one is the collective power of our central energies, if we could put it that way. So let's go to that part. Any other comments? Thank you, Ike. Any other thoughts? As Mr. Keshe said, we'll handle everything in the background. All you have to do is listen and participate if you can. Perhaps reach into your pocket once in a while, or put something off that you wanted and give to someone else. That beautiful ability to remain free for humanity. And you're part of that process as I see it. Any other thoughts or questions before we go to the Dome of Peace? Alex, we're rechecking in with you. We can always go back and finish up the rest of the workshop if you're delayed, but if not, let's do the Dome of Peace. And you're all welcome to participate as early and as often as you'd like in this process.
I don't know if anyone wants to read this Dome of Peace. Anyone want to offer?
I
With
will
a nice
read it
voice.
for you.
Okay.
This is what came in and what is now become a pattern. This from a guy, I don't know him, but it says, please remember this Sunday and every Sunday from now on, till we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet. Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the gas waters around the world at 12 p.m. Central European Time and or 18 p.m. Central European Time every Sunday at the same time as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for participating in this greatest movement by the soul of the man to bring about the peace on this planet as the permanent feature of the life of this planet.
So again, we use the matter state, that's what this exercise is about, to reach the level of understanding of the central energy of the man or the soul of the man. So you can release GANS waters any way you like. You can use any sort of GANS. If you're not sure what a GANS is and how to use it, we're just taking the top third of the water or something and releasing that. We're not actually, even though you could add a little bit of GANS to it and release it any way you like in a spray bottle, down a drain or other ways around your property, in rivers and streams and the rest. It knows what to do. It knows how to bring balance, and it has an intelligence. And again, now we take that into, we remember Mr. Keshe has always said, we use the matter state to reach the level of understanding of the soul of the man. So now, since we've reached that level, but that process will continue of releasing GANS waters. So you can do it, as he said, collectively on Sundays, or you can do it individually anytime you'd like. And again, who could imagine that a simple water would allow the balancing of a planet in a much bigger dimension? And of course, I think with the One Nation Network, it will even energize it perhaps a bit further. My own thinking on this. Now we're going to the second step of the Dome of Peace, which every day you can join, and just in the energy dimension. And again, this is kind of awkward if you haven't been doing it or haven't tried to do it before, and how to give someone good part of your emotions in the positive way. But we all know we've certainly given bad thoughts and bad emotions to people that might have offended us or done us wrong or stolen from us. So you know how that process works. But just instead of releasing negative things, let's release positive energies of peace and calmness and balance in the rest of the world leaders. So we know we can do it. We actually do it in our lives. Somebody bumps into your car, or other things happen at work, or something else. You know how to convey a very negative emotion. Maybe you don't say anything, but you're certainly creating that plasma. So now let's move into this idea of using our central energies to elevate the others. This is how you bring the change, as I understand it, not through taking away from them or abusing them at all in the physicality. It's just an elevation of the central energies of the person. And again, remember, the world leaders are just spokespeople for those who are sort of operating behind the curtains. But in this process, we can reach them as well, or their managers, let's say. So you're all invited. It's not a formal meeting, but just join together on the energy level, and then you can extend it as much as you'd like. Again, this is a very similar process to the pulsing that Mr. Keshe is indicating will come. Peace and love pulsing will come through the One Nation Network. So everyone's invited, and the beauty is nobody fails this test. We make a beautiful bouquet, and you can stay there for a nanosecond, a minute, or whatever. And you can also continue to do the work of whatever you're doing in the physicality, as I understand it. Whether you're driving, changing the baby, making dinner, you can operate in both at the same time. So this is the second part of the Dome of Peace, where you use your central energies and the soul of the creator in a way to connect with the others, to give to them, not forcing, but just giving, that the soul of the leaders and others picks up something, or that energy, and changes a dimension within the dimension of physicality that enlightens another. And this is the process you'll carry into the universe as well. The giving and exchanging of fields. At certain points you may need fields, and other points you may need to give fields. So let's become comfortable with this, and this is the way the universe operates in that energy dimension. So let's hear from Shweta, if we can.
Anybody wants to read the Dome of Peace? I mean, beautiful souls in here. Okay, I'll read this beautiful presentation of Dome of Peace. And the Dome of Peace is already here. All the knowledge seekers, truth seekers, lovers of humanity has built it in a way, spreading the guns, loving each other as shareholders. So I will read this as please remember every Sunday from now on until we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet, Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the Gans waters around the world at 12 p.m. CET and or at 18 p.m. CET every Sunday at the same time, as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for the participation in this greatest movement by the soul of man to bring about the peace on this planet as a permanent feature of the life of this planet. Mr. Keshe suggests we add the next step to create the dome of peace with power of the souls, as we have already going through this with the 2 eyes. And we ask you to spread the Gans waters each Sunday. Now we give you a new path. Now try to unite each other's souls. Try to elevate the souls of humanity, soul of humanity, through your own soul to a level that no one can touch, the embodiment of the human race. So beautiful. Choose a time where all of you come together on the soul level in a state of inner calmness. At that time, don't spread the water of Gans, but spread your soul. Unite, and in time, we will make a new race out of the soul of man. And then, instead of doing it once a week, do it all the time. Empty Keshe.
Okay, thank you, Shweta, and thank you, Stefania, for voicing that for us. But again, it's a very simple process, doesn't take a lot of work, and you don't fail it. Let's join the others because it just is a bit past 9 p.m. Central European time. And let's join the others for about 60 seconds. This is the process. And again, learn to give those fields to the others that are in need, or a soul that's in need. Let's say we're not physically giving to the world leader, we're giving to the soul of the world leader and others. So let's just take, again, 60 seconds and just do this very simple process. Again, working with the plasma doesn't take a lot of effort, doesn't take a lot of work. Working in the matter state, if we had to do this through the matter state, does take a lot of work and takes a lot of energy as well. So let's just, for 1 minute, join together, make a beautiful bouquet of great emotions and send them off to the world leaders. We'll start now. And this is how easy the process is. Again, you can still work in the physicality, knowing that you've given to someone else. And of course, you don't lose anything. It's not like you're taking something out of your pocket in the matter state and giving it away. The more you give, the more you will receive. So you're actually nourishing yourself by doing this process. And nobody fails this test. So thank you all. Congratulations. Stay humble, as Mr. Keshe said. Some people may want to worship you or even kiss your hand in the future, that you've come around this knowledge in some sort of special way, but it hasn't. We're just as equal as everyone else. and we don't lord that over anyone. And as he said, don't rub it in when people that have criticized you or belittled you for approaching this sort of understanding. Again, just be very patient with them, as Mr. Keshe has been with all of us. So thank you for participating. Please continue the process. As we understand, it'll be continued until we reach that permanent peaceful position. But you can see the help we're getting from the Peace and Enlightenment game and many other sources. As Mr. Keshe said, they're replicating some of the energies of the 3I as it's fully been recorded. And now they'll be using this in some sort of transmission way in the transmission sessions we mentioned earlier. So I think it's time to sort of switch gears, and Alex has a presentation. He's been preparing with all the love and care. I'm sure we can feel it in your presentation, Alex. So thank you for being here. Thank you for delivering. And this is our new background in a way for 2026. It's rather busy, but so isn't the Keshe Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks for bringing everybody to this particular point. And you're absolutely right. We are extremely busy, and there's a lot to do. So please stand by.
Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
Well, congratulations, everybody. We are here. And as we rocket into the new year, this is the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting of 2026. And we're still talking about the same things we've been talking about for well over a decade. It's the World Peace Treaty. We need to bring it on. I mean, it's long overdue, isn't it? We keep doing the same things and expecting different results. It's kind of strange, but that's just the way human nature is, because we've been conditioned to that, and we've accepted that. We've accepted that because we are not worthy. Well, surprise. You can't be more equal. Equal is equal. Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute is bringing you the plasma science. We're discussing advanced GANs tech. Today's session is solid GANs. My name is Alexander. I'm from Canada. It is January the 4th of 2026. And this is part of the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. So as we turn another chapter in this ongoing series, we see that we're heading into our 6th year of doing these public teachings. We try to distill them into bite-sized pieces, but it's getting to be like a Chinese buffet, 100 meals, and you can only handle one. But the reason is because we have to move ahead. As students, we become teachers, and new students come on, and they too will become teachers. So we need to arm ourselves with the knowledge so that we can convey it in our own way. And that's what's important, our own way. Stay within your own means, stay within your own knowledge, and be open to the possibilities to expand that knowledge here, because we are beyond Beijing, May the 10th of 2025, because the 2025 gold rush has begun. And we have always been discussing the books of Marantava Keshe, such as book number 1, The Universal Order of the Creation of Matter. And that's the bringing together of matter, antimatter, and dark matter. And then book number 2, if you're bringing this together and where you're bringing it, you need to understand the structure of the light. So there's a source, there's a destination, and there's an in-between. And we seem to be that in-between passenger, because in order to be a passenger, you have to have a vehicle. So in book number 3, we're talking about the origin of the universe, which creates all of these vehicles. So we see the one splits up into the duality, the singularity splits up into the duality of the sister universe with man's universe. But in that realm, we only have our little tiny perfect world we call Earth. And then on Earth, we have an even tiny perfect world going on. So we deride the cavemen for being ignorant. And as many of us decide to move into condominiums, we have literally moved into modern day caves. And that's unfortunate. It's a fallacy, because we don't want to get involved. We don't want to accept responsibility. Well, we have to accept responsibility because this is our domicile. And for 411 weeks, the One Planet, One Nation, One Race for Justice and World Peace, brought to you by Rick Kravman and the members of the Universal Council, I've been trying to bring forward the concept, the notion that we are all one part of humanity race, and that this Earth space is our place. And we all stay here as if there is no other place, but there is no other race, which is patently false, has been proven many, many times. In many cases, the corroboration and proof of that has been classified, and we know that. So we don't have any access to classified information, and we don't have access to advanced research. But it's patently obvious we were born. Where did we come from? And how did we get here? And why did we get here? Mathematically speaking, because of the angular density. They say we are falling through weakness, but that's not true. We are falling through increased density, increased pressure, increased gravity. Overall, that's the increased dependence on Earth space feeding. So, as being represented as falling angels, but it's contrary to the internal pressure of the Gans fields. And these are manifest in our auras. And our auras convey that energy that is manifest in our angular density, but angular momentum is conserved. And so where is that conserved? And so when we look at the stars out in the sky, we see that they're very, shall we say, weak compared to our sun. And our sun is a star. But we have in our GANS technology created tetrahedral stars, not understanding that these are overlapping fields of spherical stars. So when we look at our sun star and its manifestation, our sun as a star, and we look at the other suns, they're stars in the night sky. So we say, well, these are all fallen angels as a fallen star. But in reality, we are arrived angels as arrived sun stars. And this is becoming more and more apparent because there's a fallacy in understanding, and it comes about with the understanding of the plasma rule. From a society where the higher strength beats up the weaker strength, the plasma rule says the higher strength feeds the weaker strength. Either case, this becomes a transaction zone. So the point of view is to understand, is this a point of conflict or is this a point of binding? Well, it is a point of binding regardless, whether it's a conflict zone or a binding zone, because the conflict zone brings two forces together in a binding ideology of conflict, warmongering. And so that's what binds us together. And we create an inertia density manifestation of that psychology. And it's all based on, well, we need our commandments, don't we? Because we don't know, we're not smart enough. Someone has to tell us these are how to live. And they give us 10 commandments, but we're shortchanged. There's another 14, as we found out. And number 11, thou shalt not lie. Well, that was the first broken commandment. And it allows us to continue in our delinquent ways. And so we share that. We share that understanding because energy binding is a self-serving dimension point, and it's fundamental, it's necessary. No one cares for you more than me, myself, and I. And we go to the extent where we do this at the expense of others who also have that binding point of me, myself, and I. So how do you rationalize that? If you're stealing from somebody, you're either doing it through deception, through lies, through cheating, stealing, killing. You're depriving others of that energy binding need for the fulfillment of the self-serving dimension point. So what do? They retaliate, they attack, they seek revenge, or they pass it on. Let's do the domino effect. You rob from me, I rob from the next one, let the next one rob from the other. And this is all based on the falseness of the old physics, which we see where the speed of light is the maximum speed. But when we look at that maximum speed and we see that the light is traveling in all different directions and there is a cohesiveness, that cohesiveness has to go beyond the speed of light. So that notion is false. And so in order to change direction, we have to shift our polarity. So we're doing that all the time, thousands of times every second, every day. But we say that the polar shift causes ice ages and tsunamis. That's another false physical stance. And in fact, the old science says it's not possible to regrow limbs, but salamanders can. It's not possible to change skin color, but chameleons can. And it's not possible to change one's nature, but butterflies can. So the plasma science says, well, if you're going to do that, if you're going to think that, then it's obviously not possible for you. But for the plasma science group, we need to restate and add that principal matter consists of the PM ticks, which are magnetical, and they're traveling all through the universe as an energy pack. And they diverge. And when they come together through the force field dilution, you create antimatter, dark matter, and matter gen. Why? Because there's a common denominator, and you create this plasmagen conversion, and it remains in the plasmatic state until it has a destination, until it has an environment to come to, which also becomes a gravitational magrav with the convergence of energy. And so that destination and our plasmagen fields interact in the cup of inertia. That's a field interaction between two other fields. That's the inertia. So now we understand the basics. So what we're doing is seeking magrav pathways. So each magrav has a gravitational intensity, which is attraction. In order to do that attraction, it has to feed back. And from that feedback, we have the magnetical outintensity, which is repulsion. And that, what you repel, becomes the feeding for something else. And so we look at the relationship of the electron, and then we look at the relationship of the neutron, and we know which one's bigger. And I'm sure you can tell. And that's where the anomaly comes in, because all things are relevant. And they're related to something else. So in our discussion of matter plasma dimensions, we just boil it down to the gravitational part is the physical, which you can touch and see, and the plasmatic magnetical, you cannot touch and cannot see. But this part of the plasmatic reality is the completion of the matter plasma dimension. And the matter plasma dimension is part of the feedback. And so when you say, well, what you see is what you get, that's part of our feedback. But how about what you see is what you create? And that is also part of the feedback. So we have to understand that there are counterweights that we have to measure. And so if we are feedback dominant, that is our physical state. And for that physical state, we apply a weight, such as underweight, overweight, or how heavy is it? But in the atomic state, we are still measuring, but by mass. That's how we differentiate all the different atoms. And so we apply a mass to these atoms, and the way the mass increases is by increasing the number of atoms. So this is the gravitational part of the counterweight measure, but then we get into the nuclear state, we measure that with Teslas. And we have achieved 129 Tesla, which is 129 times the magnetical field strength of our planet Earth. And this is still being downplayed as some kind of false science, even though what you see is what you get. And then we have the anomaly of time. How does that fit? So we find that that is the plasma state. So the nuclear state and the plasma state are part of the magnetical counterweight. And so the counterweight measures is how everything works, because it keeps it in balance. It keeps it in equilibrium. So this is where the plasma matter dilemma comes in, because we are talking about advanced GANs tech here, which is coming from the atomic state into the nanostate, into the GAN state. And in order to balance these equations, the one side has to equal the other side, and each side has to have a magnetical gravitational relationship. And then we come to the plasma state, and it has a non-tangible relationship. And then we are able to transcend the various levels with this magrav energy transfer state. So when we have the equilibrium, you don't just look at the plasma state or the GAN state. You can actually cross over state lines People do that in the US all the time. But what we're looking at is the advanced science surrounding carbon-14. And man-space has to have a different point of view. From our point of view, the matter state is a dilution of emotions. The emotion of man, the emotion of physicality, the emotion of presence, the emotion of position, and the emotion of vision. But the soul space point of view involves the emotion of knowledge. We all think we understand love because love is simply irresistible. And we know that it's an emotion, but it has greater meaning, far more intense, because it allows us to transcend the various highways of our journey. We're used to the transmission highway of the carbon-12, but now we've introduced the transition highway of carbon-14. And that is just a midpoint to get us to the transmutation highway of carbon-16. And is that the ceiling? Is that the upper limit? Or can we go further than that? Well, let's reinforce the foundations of our knowledge to understand that ray motion is part of creation. And there's two types of creation. There's the creation part of creation, but it is counterweighted by natural decay. And then there's the decay part of creation, which is counterweighted by natural creation. And then these two are balanced through a bonding factor. That's the transaction zone between the natural creation and the natural decay. But it goes in various dimensions. And it has to cross these boundaries. And again, we don't take that into account because out of sight, out of mind, don't see it, we don't have to explain it. So we just fudge that knowledge and say, well, you know, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is. So when we look at the carbon inertia highways, we understand that the atomic structure is in the physical state, but we have isotopes of carbon-14 and carbon-16, and we have to understand that the counterweight to that is not visible to us. And that invisible counterweight also has a counterweight, and that's invisible to us. So whichever relationship that you want to pick becomes a turning point from one side of the counterweight to the other side of the counterweight. So we have multiple turning points in terms of our understanding of the equilibrium of the universe. So understanding that point, now we introduce the plasma space point of view. And isn't that interesting? It involves the dilution of the emotions, the same thing. The emotion of man, the emotion of physicality, the emotion of presence, the emotion of position, and the emotion of vision. How is that possible for the plasma space point of view to reflect the same point of view as the man space? Well, the common denominator is the soul space point of view, which involves the emotion of knowledge and the emotion of love. And it still is simply irresistible. So this is where our problem sits. This vitality comes in the form of a loosh. And so we talk about the energy binding at the expense of others. That is the stealing of loosh. But we enhance that by actually being a loosh leaker. We need to stop leaking. We need to enlist the services of the energy fields that are given to us. We need a boost. We need a vitality enhancement to enhance our emotional structure and our physical structure. Did you want regular, or would super be good today? And why not? Because you were born with all the vitality that you needed. Somewhere along the way, we lost it. It was either stolen from us or we just plain leaked. So to understand these energies, we look at sunflowers and see the overlapping fields. We're going to discuss that a lot because the singularity of each field is the magnetical gravitational relationship. But when you look at the sunflower, it has many different fields. So the singularity of that field comes from the duality of the maggrav of the inertia field, which is to say that one part of the maggrav inertia field is a magnetical gravitational relationship. The other part of the maggrav inertia field is a magnetical gravitational relationship, and the combination of two create the maggrav of the inertial field of a magnetical gravitational relationship. So you see that we have many sun-star varieties. And so when we were creating the cups of life, we know they weren't the cups of the pandemic, but they involved the nanocoating process of the monatomic science. And here we are in the advanced GANS tech talking about the polyatomic science of the inner space, the emotional strength that comes from our core, from somewhere deep down in that nebulous point within us that is reflected in our emotion, and therefore each cup of life becomes unique and becomes, shall we say, influenced by your emotion. If it's influenced by your emotion, that means, well, you have a say. And not only that, but you were able to radiate different kinds of manifestation, such as carbon dioxide, calcium, zinc, copper, water, amino acid. And here comes the gold. The gold rush has begun, and there are many such rushes. And the foundation has advanced to that one-track cup of the universe, which involves the combination of the copper GANs, which is the physical vitality, and the zinc GANs, which is the emotional vitality, and the carbogen, which is connected. It's connected to the universal vitality. And there is a connection, and it manifests through the pituitary, which is the intermediary between the cup of the universe and the cup of man. And so we talked about being squeezy, like toothpaste from a tube, or squeezing water from a sponge. Hard to squeeze blood from a stone because stones don't squeeze. But mushrooms can squeeze out from wood. So this is being squeezy in a matter state. But when we look at the somatidian biology, we see the tiny bodies and how they get squeezed out from the red blood cells. And ironically, we call plasma blood as a plasma. But that is a plasma in a matter state. And so this squeezy is done in that plasma matter state. But how do snails squeeze out when their home is something that they carry and it's rigid and they hide inside. And so when we look at the structure of the snail home, it's like a cornucopia, but it also grows in layers. And the snail inside is squeezing out the GANs of calcium to make its home. And oddly enough, the seashell from the sea snails somehow squeezes out through the crust of that dome and has more spirals in a different direction. Well, how do you squeeze out rigid spirals out of a cornucopia type shell when it's all solid? And then this becomes part of the memory because that's how we reinforce the nerves. The memory coils around the nerve cells with the myelin sheath. So we find that everything grows in this manner through these rotating fields. And it grows in all sorts of different directions and different dimensions. And it has to follow the laws of equilibrium, the balance equation, the conservation of energy. So we see these different anomalies. And we know that our skin is kind of squeezy. We can pinch it. But if we pinch it hard, we'll see there's the bone inside of the skin. But moose has the bone outside of the skin. And the snail, well, he has a bone around the skin. And the sea snail has a bone outside of the bone. And so we've seen the manifestation of cancerous tissue form a scab outside of the skin. How did that scab emerge on the outside when it was a dense structure inside? It must have just squeezed out. So we find that the universal cup is a real dynamic system, because in order to make that physical destination state, it has to go through that dynamic transfer state. And there's not only one pathway. You have arms and legs and all sorts of organs. And how do you organize that? So we see that we need to have target practice to understand that it's not the decision of the kidney to rule over the liver or the heart to rule over the kneecap. But this dynamic transfer state is universal. It is unconditional. And we see that in the cup relationship. So if we review, the emotional cup has a gravitational magnetical relationship. The cup of physicality has a magnetical gravitational relationship. And as such, they have a soul radiance. And then the cup of the soul has a magnetical gravitational relationship and also a soul radiance. And that becomes the cup of man. So the collective cups have a magnetical gravitational relationship and a soul radiance. And that's our aura. How do we manifest into that physicality, which we call earth space? Well, it too has to have a magnetical gravitational relationship and a solar radiance, and then has an inertia density manifestation into its physicality. Now we have a place to go to. So now we have the cup of inertia, which has a magnetical gravitational relationship between the soul of man, the cup of man, and the cup of earth. And that becomes the inertia field of the manifestation of all that is here. All has come together with coming together of the Gans matter, the coming together of matter, dark matter, and antimatter. And depending on your point of view, each matter has overlapping fields. But when we put all the matters together, they too have overlapping fields. So we have the Gans of the Gans inertia, and each field becomes a fragment of the complexity. So each field is just one field, and they come together and they create more than three fields, because you don't lose the initial magnetical force field of the inertia field of the matter. And then you get a product. And we saw that product achieved, and we did the Gans of the Ganses. We created the cup of life. And then we created the cup of life products. If we took the cup of emotion of cup number one and the cup of emotion of cup number one of another cup and put them together, we created the Gans of the Gans, which each two was a transaction zone and became another cup of emotion. Much more potent, much stronger by orders of magnitude, because that energy field is always positive. But when we look at the charge, it's representative of the polar energy that manifests as an emission of magnetical force fields. And the field strength of it is imparted into the rotation speed and strength. And of course, we can change the direction through pole flipping, and we have to do that because energy is in motion. So from some emission, it has to have an absorption, which is gravitational. But in order to move, there has to be a magnetical gravitational relationship. Otherwise, it wouldn't move. It would just kind of exist. So in some ways, we see solids having different characteristics. They grow. How can solids grow? That kind of makes them kind of squeezy. But it's not the solid product that is squeezy. It's the Gans of the Gans that is squeezy. We see how easily the Gans flows in water. So we understand that water can exchange energy, which means that water can give and take. And we've seen that Ganses can give and take energy. So in this motion, as the Gans flows in water, it is exchanging magnetical energy, but that's in one direction. It also has to exchange gravitational energy. So in other words, in order for it to move, it has to give, and then it takes. It has to give its magnetical energy and take its gravitational energy. You have to have it to give it. And when you get it, you have to give it again in order to have it again. And so we find that grand central station of the Earth Ganses, it all seems to be transacted in singularity. But we have to understand that there are neighbors to wherever we mine our mineral. And those neighbors are not the same in all parts of the world. So although the product is in singularity, the reference is in duality. And this is reflected in the purity of the material that we get. So as such, today, we want to discuss solid gases. And so what is the difference between a solid gas and a liquid gas? Well, you could say that the difference is in the amount of water. And so that would be true. But is the solid gas, which is a sun-like product, is it bound together as an atomic state? Is that a good question? Or is that a question that you never ask? Because they are bound together. But each gas remains independent. And if that is the case, then each gas has a field. And those fields, in terms of its solidity, are binding. But these bindings are overlapping fields of solid gas. And they're not atomic, they're covalent bonds. Different from atomic bonds. Well, covalent bonds are a type of atomic bond. But these covalent bonds are products of emotion. Because the field strength of the gas is reflected in the emotion. And so we know the product of emotion, one exists in the matter state and one exists in the plasma state. And so when we look at this nuclear feeding inertia, each one is a fragment of the complexity. So the solid gas has a gravitational stability, but it also has a dimensional portability. It can go through various dimension points. So you can bring all the gases together into a solid state, or you can blend the gases together in a solid state. How do we know that's true? All we have to do is look at the periodic table of physical matter and we see all the Earth space range details. We have all of these elements and each of them are a product of the inertia fields, depending on their location, depending on their purity, depending on their field strength. And it's variable all around the world. So we have copper in Chile and oil in the Middle East and gold in the Far East. But they all manifest the same way. And then we have the humanity. And it discriminates through absorption, reflection, or emission. That's how we shield ourselves. The same way the sun shields itself. It absorbs what it needs and reflects what it doesn't. But the sun is basically all absorbing. And therefore it's all emission. And so we have the physicality of the sun. And we say it's physical because we can see it. So it's part of light in physicality. And then all the planets are physical. And each and every planet is fed by the light of the sun. And so each planet has been created by the sun in a specific manner, and it's all the same because the sun has shielded itself from all the things that would not be helpful to the existence of the planets, and we do the same. And that's why we have a skin coating that allows us to operate in the Earth space. So the discriminating factors, of course, is when two forces come together and they create this plasma field. So the two forces being the coming together, the X and the Y axis, and the inertial product becoming the Z axis. And then from there, we have a dynamic plasma, which gives us the emission. And that emission is beyond the field of the physicality. So this is important to understand because now we have a coming together of the GANs that's flowing in water, giving and taking energy, but in the solid GANs, well, it's all squunched together. So you can squeeze things together in a plasmagen state, and you can create this plasma condition, which can kind of be molded or squeezed into different forms. But we have this vision. We see it in the pupil of the eye. When we look in there, are we looking at the black hole of the soul? Well, the thing is that something is always something. Nothing is nothing. And so when they say, hey, good looking good, well, that depends on the eye of the beholder. But we say, well, are you even looking? Because as a plasmagen giver, are we actually spellbound and only giving what we are perceived to be allowed to give? Or are we a plasmagen receiver, getting energy from a space-bound source that allows us to get whatever we need? And then we come together in a solid state, a magnetical field brought together. And each of these clips are independent, but they're brought together. And we can undo these safety pins. And we find that they spring open. And in order to close them, we can spring them together. And unless you lock them in, you can squeeze them and release them and have constant motion. And so now we understand how waves are created. There's a constant squeezing together and releasing, squeezing and releasing. But when you're in a solid state, what you get is a ring. And that ring is squeezed together. And it has a magnetical outside and a gravitational inside. But if that gets released, then we change the dynamics here. And so here we get the GANs of connection. So by releasing that tension, we have the fundamental principle of the twinity. It will relax to its point and connect to that magnetical field. And we can change that. by changing the relationship of the outside field to the inside field. So this is how the relationship is in the principal universal line maps, the magnetic fields. So if we try and explain this, would it help to understand that there's a feeding inertia Gans matter, where you have the singularity of each field as a product of the duality of the maggrav of the inertia field. And since we're part of this process, we're not fallen angels, we are arrived angels. Our destination was the Earth space. So the feeding inertia Gans matter is an inertia density manifestation. And we see that with the hydrogen. Hydrogen is not just hydrogen. It's a hydrogen molecule with covalent bonds. But when the bonds are together with the similar poles, that is orthohydrogen. When the poles are opposite, that's parahydrogen. So by flipping the poles, we change the personality of the hydrogen. Well, the same thing happens with the Gans of the Gans. And we can take the cup of emotion, which we created from 2 cups of emotion, and the Gans of the cup of physicality, which we created from 2 cups of the physicality. And now we have a different cup of life product. The Gans of the cup of emotion and the Gans of the cup of physicality, and they come together. So now we understand the concept of duality, where 2 points working together in tandem as a partnership. We call this the twinity. So we see the equilibrium of one base, one gravitational construct, which comes together from more dimensions. And that interacts with another construct of many more dimensions. But then we have the equilibrium extends not only in the physical state, but in the plasma state. And not only the plasma state of the matter, but the plasma state of the universal force fields. And we demonstrated that, the susceptibility of duality, where we did this in Beijing and we showed the creation of gold. So each of the points of the star were magnetical, and the center star was gravitational. But that center star had a gravitational relationship to another magnetical field, which was another transaction zone. And it created the solid Gans of the gold. So when this solid inertia field of the Earth space metals comes together, and it comes together atomically, it is created from a polyatomic inertia gradient. So the transaction zones have to nest together so that you have a vertical maggrav joined together by a gravitational field, or a magnetical gravitational field. And then aligned. They come together. But then somehow, some way, this has to be released. So the polyatomic solid Gans inertia in the Gans state has a covalent bond. And so we understand that the gravitational fields come together. They have this magnetical bond. But how do each of these individuals come together? So individually, they all come together with a covalent bond that is a magnetical bond. But we still have the common polarity. So how do we do this with the solid GANs? Well, let's review the susceptibility and duality, where each of the points of the star formation are a magnetical point and the convergence is a gravitational point at the center core. So each magnetical point has a field that is a magnetical gravitational balance. And when all of these fields overlap together, they create this susceptibility and duality. And we say susceptibility because it involves the emission, which is your squeezy in a plasma state. It can do a lot of things. So the emission is different from the reflection. The reflection is not what you are. What you are is what you absorb, and what you emit is what you don't need. But that emission is for the benefit of others who can receive that and absorb that. So that is the dynamic plasma relationship. This squeezy state and the plasma state, the relationship between the horizontal transmission and the vertical transition, that's your transaction zone at that Earth space point within. And as it emits, it creates that Earth space field around. And the motion around that field also has a transaction zone through polar flipping, so that you have the magnetical gravitational relationship and that motion. And eventually you create this free plasma, which comes from the magnetical star formation of one transaction zone and the magnetical star formation of another transaction zone and the gravitational connection, another transaction zone. But that's not rigid. That is squeezy in a plasma state. Because when you have 3 amino acids in a string, you can do that. But when you add the 4th one, they fold over into protein. And so this becomes a structure within a structure. And then you can add more amino acids. And these all become part of the carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen structure. What is feeding that? It's this cosmic ray binding. Yep. This binding field has many fields. It's not a simple field, it's a complex field. And each field has its own magnetical gravitational relationship. And the bonding point is the gravitational point between 2 magnetical fields. So when you look at the outer field, it has a magnetical gravitational relationship of that field and the magnetical gravitational relationship of a lower field. And then that field has a gravitational relationship, and the lower field again has a gravitational relationship. And then you get to the core. And that core, of course, is gravitational. So you have this polar flipping all along, and it's in constant motion. So that creates a vertical positioning. So if you recall in the 603rd Knowledge Seekers workshop, that vertical alignment. So the path link of the infinity loops, it isn't just one loop, where what we saw was the relationship between the soul and the soul of physicality. That was one loop. And the soul of physicality and the physicality, that's the other part of the loop. So that created an inertia field, and then from there you had an emission. And that emission went out, and that allowed us to cross that threshold. And we could squeeze into a plasma state. Well, that's exactly what we're seeing from the galaxies of the universe, because the PM ticks are flying all over the place. And they come together in a rotating field, and they create this gravitational core. And so that becomes a point of reference. And within that reference, we have our sun. So our sun is, in fact, looking for equilibrium. So not only do you have the stability of the inner core, but you have the stability of the outer field as it relates to the field strength of everything. And not just in one direction, but in many directions. And you say, well, wait a second, now the magnetical fields are outnumbering the gravitational fields significantly. How do we maintain this equilibrium, this cosmic ray equilibrium? We're maintaining that force field at the core, and yet we're emitting magnetically in all different directions. Well, this is all part of the radiance. And so now we understand how the indiscriminate radiance is manifest by the sun. It shields us from what we don't need, but it gives out from the different fields. And so we see that it is constantly roiling in bulges and bubbles and bursts. And each of those is an emission. So it is able to take in and manage the energy in a containment field. And it has the flexibility to absorb what it needs and reflect what it doesn't. But it does so in a nurturing fashion because it has a capacity, because of its structure, its plasmatic structure. It gives it the flexibility to absorb. Physicality has a limited capacity for that kind of absorption. But it does have a capacity. And so when we start looking at the GANs, we look at the nuclear feeding inertia, which forms this gravitational base of the matter, antimatter, and the dark matter is for the universal creation of matter. That is your inertia density manifestation. The combination is more dense. But each matter also has different inertias. All points are different. And that gives you a different flavor. So you can do the same thing with the solid GANs. The sun-star inertia becomes an inertia density manifestation there. But that's not just the matter state, but it involves the dark matter and the antimatter. And so all the points are different by flavor and by position and by time. And they all revolve around a gravitational base, which is part of the sun-star inertia. And we can see that in the solid GANs because that's an inertia density manifestation of a different order, far more potent. So when we look at the polyatomic solid GANs, These are not just covalent bonds that are magnetical bonds, but they have to cross over this transaction zone because they need to maintain the equilibrium that is facilitated through the covalent bonds of that transaction zone. And they're non-visible. These are the cosmic ray bonds. Because each of the ganses is like a little star. So the cosmic ray bonds become gravitational bonds. So we see the solid GANs coming together in its solid state. But its structure is totally different from the atomic state. It still has a physical characteristic, but it comes together. So now we understand the humanity matter state inertia, how it comes together, because humanity consists of GANs. But it also consists of solid GANs. We call that our bones. The solid GANs accelerates angular momentum. That's why we walk on the ground and not on the ceiling. But we have a magnetical consistency. Because like the sun, it comes up every day, and then we come up every day. But we can flip things around. We have to understand that there's a structure within the structure. So as that structure gains its complexity, we find that it's all part of the whole. And we still maintain that magnetical consistency. And it's this diversity which allows us to be flexible in terms of our consistency. It allows us to have this gravitational consistency because gravity seeks density. So the solid GANs actually accelerates this angular momentum. So the GANs of the soul understands the combination of the GANs of the GANs of the cup of emotion and the GANs of the GANs of the cup of physicality. This enhances our gravitational stability, and you're a gravitational entity traveling in a magnetical field. So in review, the plasmas come together with a common denominator, come together in this dimension point of a magnetical gravitational relationship into a gravitational zone. And there's a discrimination. It's a selection of our personal star of physicality, which comes from the soul of the physicality of our sun. But there has to be a counterpoint, a pre-selection, a solar physicality of the stars of the universe. Just like all the planets, the sun is shielding on many levels, shielding the planets and shielding humanity and shielding all the vertical and horizontal people and all the gravitational conformation. And we have this because we have an emission of light. And as it crosses the threshold into the physicality, sure, oxygen is a non-visible gas, but it gives us an emission spectrum, which is a fingerprint of its uniqueness. So this gravitational conformation is a plasmatic decay to GANs. And then the GANs can decay from gas to liquid and to solid. And that imparts a real stability. But here we are, depending on supplementation due to consumption, and understanding this is an acquired knowledge. It's a conditional teaching handed down by ancient teachers. You have to tune in and cross that bridge to the unconditional teaching by the Creator. This is part of the newer awareness, the historical threshold between the cosmic feeding and the loosh harvesting. because as we go into uncharted territory, we have to understand that there's a collective herd, and all of us are at this turning point, just like the stars beyond the nano-monatomic state, covering the range from decay to radiation. The AI is the ancestral intelligence, where we are the technology and we are the inertia product. And we are the image of our dimensional convergence points. So this energy portability that goes from this energy state transition from elevation, which is the physical matter state, to the energy state, and inertia, which is the energy state to physical matter state. And we talk about elevation because that involves expansion. And since the solid state GANS is more dense, it imparts a higher gravitational field, which has to be counterweighted by the higher magnetical field. So that susceptibility and singularity endures a gravitational completion. It requires an external input. And so we saw the GANS field of humanity convert the GANS in Beijing through the susceptibility and duality and turn that into gold. We have a new external input. 3i. So as we have a dynamic soul initiator, we have to understand that there's energy coming from the soul of the creator, the soul of the earth, the soul of the family of humanity, the soul of man, the soul of the body, and the soul of the cells. And these operate on the same language. There's no translation needed. It's the energy of the cosmic ray. So we need to tune into the cosmic rays. That's the soul food that comes in from the creator. So let's plug into the creator and turn on to that energy and drop out of our resistance to receive that inertia point, the manifestation of the enhancement of our vitality. So we have to provide the pattern in order to get that energy. And so we've been trying to teach this greater oneness for 623 knowledge seekers workshops over a decade. And it appears that we are suddenly transcending the limitations of nuclear science. No, it's been a long process. It's been an ongoing process. We just have to recognize that we have the capability of turning the diamonds of nanostate to the gold of the GANS state. And we understand that the GANS has an affinity for truth. So that is the reality. From May the 10th of 2025, our research teams are taking this knowledge and delivering it with the One Nation Network, bringing a scientific rescue, opening the blinds, one nation network at a time. And that time is now, because the technology is in hand. Our mission is to bring peace on earth and join humanity with the universal community. We want to bring man as equal to all the beings in the universe by teaching the plasma science and technology equally to everyone, that no one is left out and no one is abused due to the lack of knowledge. So help us achieve this goal. That's why the World Peace Treaty is so vital. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute, teachings on plasma science, welcoming all the beautiful knowledge seekers of the carbon nations, learning about the new selection process of the new organic plasma science. That World Peace Treaty is something that you can choose and sign it unconditionally and mean it sincerely. Only you know the truth. The point of the true GANS tech is to cross these polyatomic boundaries. The overlapping fields of the Earth space create the peace dome. So is the inertia of the present governed by dimensions of history? It is time to learn the history of self in a universal context. The GANS is a peaceful superconductor focusing on true intentions, and the PM ticks can accelerate through solid Gauss fields, ranging the matter, plasma, and universal states. And that's why plasma science is delivered and needs to continue to be delivered daily via the Peace Dome in a practical exchange for peace on Earth. So welcome to the new golden outer space age. And that's the end of this session. And it's also the end of the advanced GANT Tech series. And I certainly hope that you've enjoyed it. Happy New Year to everyone.
Thank you, Alex, and Happy New Year to everyone as well. Let's see if the participants have been aroused or become a bit more inquisitive of what you mentioned. I was thinking, maybe I know Mr. Keshe has been trying to transfer this knowledge to us for years and years, and we haven't fully understood. Will this game of peace and enlightenment, in a way, maybe take some pressure off the teachers or Mr. Keshe as we start to teach ourselves to be peaceful and to be enlightened? Would that take some burden off those trying to teach it this way? Or perhaps this teaching will become clearer for us. I'm trying to follow. I can't follow completely or understand it exactly the way you're understanding it, but will the game help us in this process?
So I think there's one word that I would like to change, and that is the burden of teaching. If we understand the story of Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, if you're part of the group and their business is stealing, you better go along to get along. How do you change your nature? Well, you have to change your environment. And so as we teach, it's not a burden, it is an enhancement. And so for each and every person who is a new knowledge seeker, we have to understand that the common denominator is to seek freedom. It's all part of the seeking of the freedom and emancipation of humanity. Why is it that we need to seek that? Isn't that our natural, universal right? So it just follows that this is a natural process, and as such, it should be graceful. It should be pleasant. We shouldn't have to work so hard to achieve peace and prosperity, especially when we have the technology to do so. Back to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Anyone else have a thought or any sort of questions they'd like to raise?
I might have one, but I think I don't have enough background knowledge at the moment, but I'm just going to try. Um, when we talk about the wave, and in the reactor group, we had a wonderful knowledge seeker lead us into requesting something from 3I. And I had a question to 3I. Were they there to help us with the energy of peace? And I had the most miraculous color. Yeah, almost something like what we see with the pictures about the earth and all the movement of the tori and everything else, all those colors. And then there was a beautiful sine wave with the most intense white to fill in the line. It was beautiful, and it was a very gentle sine wave. And then after that, I felt a wonderful, wonderful feeling of peace inside of me. So when I think about the wave, and then on YouTube, I saw something in a workshop. I'd have to find more info on the names and everything. Where the wave, I don't know if I'm very good. This is going to be really horrible, but I can try. Let's see here. The line, yeah, that'll do. Okay, they said something about you cannot have any spaces. Whoops, and like I said, I'm not sure about this. Between um it they ended up with something like this. And because the wave is supposed to be important, but this one means that there's no spaces here or here or here and here. And then I'm trying to think, is this, and they had a conversation about DNA, but I'm sorry, I didn't get everything I needed. But what does it mean anything to you? Does it look like it might be the DNA itself, the way it moves? But I thought the DNA wave was sort of a gentle two-part wave, two waves um, joining or moving together. So, um, have you any thoughts about something like this here where they're not supposed to have space between that part? Or is it something we think about?
Thought Rick was saying that even though it looks solid, there's still a gap between the magnetic fields, even though it appears as a solid.
And it's interesting, the shape is not a sharp up and down, uh, well, jagged line, I guess you would say. Smooth. So, Alex, what do you think?
Well, I think
Or
that's an
should,
excellent presentation, excellent point you brought up, because what I was trying to say with the solid GANs is that these GANSs cannot come together because they are spherical fields, each one of them being a sun. And being solid, they're kind of rigid. In order to get this compaction of a sine wave, it has to be more flexible. And the picture that you drew looks more like the way our skin is formed. So it's in a solid state, but it's flexible. So you don't have the alignment of the skin like we do in the solid GANS structure. You have more of the alignment in the physicality the way you drew. So it still becomes head to tail, head to tail. It still becomes more this way.
yes, I get you. And then the sine wave that I saw, it was so gentle, and amplitude and frequency were very, very low. So, and it was such a intense white, but not a thick line, it really moved me. It was, I didn't expect any, it was not that kind of a reaction. So, but that was the message that I thought I heard.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Gail.
Thank you, Alex.
Right, and I think more of us will start having these experiences. You've talked about magnetic fields, Alex, and birds being able to navigate. I was hearing someone say that even man has some of these magnosomes next to the cells within their brains. And as the magnetic field changes, and this was a guy who was exploring wilderness and things, and he was saying in certain parks, they actually have signs of be careful going into this area because your compass may not work correctly because of the magnetic fields from lava or granite or other things. And apparently, people will have or be able to see something in other dimensions when those magnetic fields impress upon those magnosomes that are connected to the cells in the brain. And it, in a way, it's this what Mr. Keshe is sort of doing with these magnetic fields, touching those magnosomes in the brain and giving Gail an example in a way, or maybe she's creating it, to see something that appears real but is made of magnetic fields. They say this in some of the national parks, and the National Park Service has it posted. Be careful in this area because there's a lot of magnetic anomalies. And someone was saying people have sort of different experiences sometimes in the area. They get disorientated or something else happens. So I think we have these magnosomes in our brain that can be touched or pressurized by fields, which will open up different dimensions. The dimensions are there, but we're not seeing them because we haven't pressed a certain field properly or created a certain field to open up that dimension. Just my thinking, again, being impartial.
Well, it's just amazing how you're able to bring up so many different subjects in your question. So, getting back to the universal cup, you see that the dynamic transfer state has to come from, the universal cup to the physical destination state. And what are you talking about? Is it the left hand, the right hand, or are you talking about the torso? And so
I'm talking
this energy is transferred indiscriminately.
the brain itself.
Of course. So that is constantly being influenced. And the influence is coming from two directions. It's coming from the universal state and it's coming from the matter state. So the brain itself becomes, shall we say, the dark matter, that we've been focusing on, This is the problem where when an eye doctor looks inside your eye, it's really dark in there, and he has to have a light to shine in there so that he can see. But this is the vision that we have that is coming to us all the time, and that's how we manifest. So we use that and we relate it to our existence. And so from our understanding, we actually give it out from our vision. But we also take it in through the same vision. And if that vision is exclusively matter state, then our emission becomes matter state dependent. But if we understand that it is our vision also comes in from the space, outer space, which is non-visible, then we can interact with that and create a different kind of inertia field and a different understanding. So how do we cross that line from being spacebound to being spellbound? We have to open up to the possibilities. We have to understand the realities, that there's more than just what we see in terms of physicality, but it's also part of what we see from the non-physical state. So if we only say that what we see is this light, well, we have to understand that there's a part of light that we can't see, and that light is still being emitted. And we see that's coming from the sun. The only time that we see the sunlight is when it hits the magnetosphere of the earth. Then it becomes visible. So between the earth and the sun, obviously that energy is traveling, but that energy is not visible. We have to accept that. We've always accepted that, but we've had this false thinking in terms of our physics. They say, well, We can understand our physics by looking at it from one side of the equation, but there's the other side of the equation which balances everything out. So, the sun is a benevolent giver, but it's also a benevolent taker. It's taking and shielding us because won't take everything, because each one depends on its own environment. So that environment has to be unique and conducive to our well-being. So that environment is something that attracts us. So the question then becomes is why are we so determined to make our environment so inhospitable? It's counterintuitive, it's counterproductive. And if it's counterproductive, then why is it counterproductive? We have to ask that question. And many of us are asking that question, and we can't get an answer. But there is a scientific answer to that question. And the Keshe Foundation is providing that answer. So that really isn't the burden of the Keshe Foundation, just as the teaching is not our burden. This is a welcoming. This is where angels arrive to take care of business, because that's what we want, peace and prosperity on this planet. And if you don't want peace and prosperity on this planet, then, I don't know what you want, because it doesn't make sense. Back to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Anyone else have a question? You may want to, you said that the chameleon could change the color of the skin, and the lizard could grow his tail. And apparently we knew how to do that when we did have a tail. But maybe I heard yesterday somebody was saying how the male seahorse is able to give birth as well. So there's a lot of creatures. And I was thinking maybe that change of the color of the skin is the chameleon just using the emotion, and that puts some sort of pressure on the brain or those magnosomes in the brain and allows the skin to change color. I remember Mr. Keshe saying it, just a slight change of emotion can change your skin color.
Well, I saw this video on YouTube that actually talked about that particular point. So, we were wondering what the chameleon, what was the impetus for the chameleon to change its color? Okay, let's say you can change your color, let's say you have a normal color of a skin, and then you get angry, and you say, well, your face turns red. But your face also turns red, maybe, or it turns pink when you blush. That's always a different shade of red, so you can change color that way. So yeah, you would say that's part of your emotion, but there was a video on YouTube that clearly showed that the chameleon was changing its color based on its environment. So if the background was red, then the chameleon would turn red, because that's what they want. They want protection. That's the whole purpose of changing the color, is to protect themselves. And we find that this is the same in fish species. For instance, in African cichlids, the dominant male is vibrant in color, and the rest of them are bland. So that's a clear signal as who is acquiescing to the power, and who is exhibiting the power. But you take that beautiful, colorful male out of the equation, the next male will change its color. It'll go from bland to being radiant. So, this is a normal process. And
We see that with the cuttlefish or the octopus as well. And again, every creature has the attributes of the creator. It's just we haven't played with them in so long, it's become foreign to us. We've certainly got heavily weighted in the matter side of things.
exactly. So nature is giving us an opportunity to learn in so many different ways. And, the interesting thing, we brought up last week the nature of the hermaphrodites, like the snails. They don't require male and female. Each of them is capable of giving birth. And now you brought up the subject of the seahorses. I forgot about that.
Well, what about the creator? Did he have a partner?
Well, see, and that's the thing. Now what you're treading on is a whole different aspect of it. This is where the uniqueness of 3i comes in, because it demonstrates very, very clearly the manifestation of many, many, shall we say, well, what word do you want to say? Spaceships? Is that what it is? Because there were many, many smaller entities, and they were emitted from 3i, like there were hundreds, right? And what's interesting about it is it went to each and every planet. So what is the common denominator? It's the sun. The sun is the common denominator because the sun is the gravitational force field that makes all the solar system and all the planets in the solar system. So when 3i was emitting all of these other ships, if you will, it was not discriminating. It was doing it to all the planets, right? And the same thing happens in somatidian biology. You have all the red blood cells emitting all these somatids. And the more somatids you have, the more vitality you have. And that's a fact. And you know that that's a problem for some people because the somatoscope in its full magnification is actually an illegal device. This is confounding to understand when the ability to see nature in its full form has been rendered illegal. I mean, think about that concept. It is when I first heard about that, I was shocked. But that's the way it is, and then there are reasons for that. So, but this information has been made public. Has been made public since 1987. So it's there. It's always been uh, available in terms of discussion, but to have actual pictures to see the creation of the somatid and how it emits from the red blood cell. Well, so is the red blood cell male or female? And is the somatid male or female? Well, the answer is it is undifferentiated until it engages its environment, and then it becomes a differentiated inertia field. Great question. Thanks, Mark.
I see Ike has a hand up. Ike, would you like
Yeah,
to?
yeah. I have a question. Mr. Keshe said everybody used to be female. What does he mean by that? And then if everybody used to be female, at what point do we change to male? And that's totally contradictory to the story of the Bible, Adam, Eve, and all that.
You mean what he said about everyone starting out as a female and then at some point there was a switch in certain entities?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what does he mean by that? Because it's totally contradictory to, I understand what the religion, the history and all that, but at what point, if everyone used to be female, so what point do we have that change? I thought it was all male, and then females came out of male. Any insight, Alex?
Yes, well, clearly, the female represents the creation, and the male represents the inertia density manifestation. So just like the somatid, it comes from what appears to be singularity, but that singularity is an inertia product field of a field of duality. That field of duality is one field is magnetical, one field is gravitational, and it is self-contained. But when we come into the physicality, now that physicality is discriminated or differentiated by its environment. And so we need to look at fish and how they balance off their male and female sorting. And it is affected by the pH of the water. So whether it's alkaline or acidic. So we find that the pH of our healthy environment on this planet is slightly alkaline. 7.46 as being the happy medium. So that's slightly alkaline, but in relationship to the healthy blood serum, less than 7.46 is acidic, and more than that is alkaline. And the majority of our population, the extreme majority, is acidic. So how is that acidic formation created? And what we find is that in the process of acidifying our blood, the DNA itself elongates. And so there you have a disruption of the communication. So the DNA can kind of squeeze back and forth like an accordion. So when it becomes healthy, it squeezes back and the communication is perfect. But when it becomes acidic, it relaxes and so it tends toward flatlining. And if we get to a pH of, say, 7.3, that's death. And yet it's still alkaline. So it's not alkaline enough. So how do we achieve that enoughness? And that is a balance of the magnetical gravitational field. So you would think that, well, the balance as the pH would be at 7. At 7, plus 7 is acidic. I'm sorry, plus 7 would be alkaline, minus 7 would be acidic. 7 and 7 being 14, that would be the happy medium, and there you have your equilibrium. But no equilibrium is at its center point, because that would only involve two relationships. Nothing in the universe has two relationships. Nothing. So the maintenance of your relationship is a maggrav field, which is a magnetical gravitational relationship, and then from there you can emit something. And so, as you've said, as a female can generate, or a hermaphrodite can generate an offspring, 3I can generate shall we say, another vessel. A somatid can be created from a blood cell. An offspring can be created from a snail. So we find that that is determination of the creator, but it doesn't give overall equilibrium, because the maintenance of the gravitational maggrav has an external force. That external force is manifest in the PM ticks, which are ubiquitous in the universe. And what we go through is a sorting process where we get what we need and we reflect what we don't. And we emit what we have absorbed through our, shall we say, physical absorption of the toxicity. And that physical toxicity isn't just manifested from the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, and the food that we eat, but it's also an emotional toxicity that we create due to our propensity to being a loose leaker. So we actually hurt ourselves in the process. Life is tough enough. Question yourself, if life is so tough, why are you an alcoholic, making life even tougher? How does that help you? Oh, it numbs your senses. Yeah, but it makes life tougher. Life is tough enough. You don't need to supplement that. You need to counterbalance that. So the you need to counterbalance means that you need to do it. That means you have a say in the process. You are the equalizer. You are the equilibrium. You are the creator of your equilibrium status. So you can actually elevate yourself from an acidic condition to a healthy condition. You can do that. And this is one of the fallacies that we have with just the clinic comes to mind in Bermuda. You know, they're promising treatments of cancer, and they do wonders. Yeah, but they're in Bermuda. You know, if I'm leaving, New York and going down to Bermuda, and I'm grumpy, when I get down there and I go on the beach, my God, I think I'm going to be very happy. And that happiness contributes to my health. So, you know, do I have to pay the $25,000 to the clinic to make me happy, or can I just go to the beach and enjoy the sunshine?
So, Alex, are you hoping to go soon?
I, I am creating my own sunshine. I go under double layers of blankets.
Oh, yeah. So I was just going to say it seems like Mr. Kesh mentioned about an African group who were able to decide, between do they need more females or more males to keep a balance in the culture. And so it means we're responding to what's around us. And also that will help us to choose, um, I suppose, the right place for us. So to me, I think it's responding to what you need in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Sunshine, Alex.
Randy mentioned in the chat, we are the ones we have been waiting for. Or are we the one we've been waiting for, where you teach yourself and open up your own understanding? Are we the one we've been waiting for? Except we've been always looking to the others to enlighten us. Now, with this play, you'll be able to enlighten yourself. So, are we the one we've been waiting for? But as Alex said, we first have to be aware of the knowledge, then we have to accept the knowledge. Just because someone's aware of something, they may not accept it, and then take it to the practicing or applying that knowledge.
Well, look at the practical application of a factory. A factory produces a car. Well, all of these cars are, shall we say, clones, but they are all a product of an inertia field. And what was that? Well, there are materials and there are people. And when the people come together, they convert the materials into products and assemble a car. So when you look at the cars, oh, where did the car come from? Oh, well, it came from the car dealer. So that's what we're doing. We're buying cars from the car dealer. It's the same way that miners are going and mining gold. Don't say, well, we're mining the gold from the earth. Well, how did the earth get its gold? Oh, well, we don't want to talk about that because we don't understand how that happens.
Right, right.
Well, I think it's just time to, and everybody knows that, there's something wrong. You can't deny it. But, in that process, we find that, this causes depression amongst people. Why? Because they don't have a solution. So it's nice to be aware. But then when you become aware that you've been lied to all your life, I mean, like I found out at the age of 40, I was given, only a few months to live due to my health. And then in a matter of 3 weeks, I get my health back. Well, I wanted to know why. And I wanted to know why it took me 40 years to find out. And, here we are, and we're still talking about that. Why? So we see the culmination of the knowledge of the Keshe Foundation coming into its practical manifestation.
Yeah,
And
but
so,
Alex, it's all interaction of fields, and with plasma, there's no restriction. So if everyone, Mr. Case classified that used to be female, that means, and all these names, we call it magnetic fields, all these are all fields. So in that case, a man can actually conceive if we have the those fields, but it's maybe the behavior of those magnetic gravitational fields. And then the environment mimics the same environment of the womb of a female. So it's possible a man can conceive. Any
the
thoughts on that?
the environment of the earth is not conducive to that. Not for man, anyway, in our current form. It
Well,
is
if you are looking at the womb as just a warehouse, remember the womb of the female, it has that inertia for that manifestation of the fields of the egg and the sperm coming together. So it's all inside that womb. So if that mimics the same, but in a different setting, not just in the female body, but in a male body, but it mimics the same, it's possible. You're probably not gonna be able to have the delivery the way it is, but at least the understanding that in fields interaction and in plasma, there's no restriction as long as you have that fields that mimic the uh, the normal way of delivering. If you mimic it in somewhere else where it's being warehoused, then it's possibility. I don't know. I'm just thinking aloud, and because Mr. Cash mentioned that everybody used to be female, and I was like, okay, what's the science behind that? That could be deep. It could be interesting to know that everybody used to have that same field interaction until a condition of the atmosphere and whatever turned it differently.
Well, to put a different spin on your point of view there, if you have read the Lost Book of Enki, there's clearly the distinction of a female giving birth in the Earth atmosphere and giving birth in space, or shall we say, inner space, the non-Earth atmosphere. And so that imparts a different condition for the being that was created. It still would be a humanity, but it would have different characteristics. And so the birth is the same, the female is the same, but the environment is different. And so that's exactly what changes the circumstances. So yes, all of that is changeable, but the fact of the matter is that you have to look at the way that these things are created. So for instance, a woman would give birth to a human, whereas a fish would give birth to an egg, just like a chicken gives birth to an egg. And silly me, I often wondered, how painful was it for a chicken to lay this big fat egg, and until because I'm a city boy and I didn't understand about, farm life. So when that egg would come out, the coating around that egg, albeit it was calcium, wasn't rigid, it was flexible, so it could be squeezed out. But then through its natural process, it created that oval shape. And you say, well, why wasn't it spherical? Well, it's an elongated sphere. And so it has a pointy end and a blunt end. And so the pointy end is magnetical and the blunt end is gravitational. And that is true based on surface to volume ratios. And so that becomes the physical interpretation of the physical conformity. But that physical conformity has come together from a plasmatic origin. So it's the same with the hermaphrodites, and they're laying, if you will, tiny specks. And how tiny are they? Well, when you look at the somatids, they're like incredibly tiny compared to the blood cells. That's what somatids means. It means tiny bodies. And
You mentioned calcium, and Mr. Kesh also said calcium is a common denominator. So that applies to the animals too, not just humans.
yeah, of course, we have calcium in our brain. That's what our brain is constructed of. We have calcium in the blood cells. We have calcium in our cartilage, and we have calcium in our bones. So the calcium itself has gone through these 4 stages: plasmatic, liquid, in sequence: plasmatic, gaseous, liquid, and solid. And each of them is a greater density. So we can take the calcium and elevate it to a plasma state, or we can take it from a plasma state and reduce it to the physical state. And so that's the portability of the energy states that we have, shall we say, developed in a practical application. So now that you know how, you have a piano with all these keys, and each key is a note, and these notes are individual. Now that you understand the basics, you can make music. And that's where we're at. We have now built the piano, and it's time to make the music.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for your question, Ike. I hope it helps.
Anything else?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, thank you, Ike. Anything else anyone wants to share or ask? Before I forget, of course, I think we all know that this week's workshop on Thursday will start at 6 p.m. rather than the 9 a.m. hour. And of course, that can change again before this coming Thursday, so just be aware.
Thanks, everybody, for allowing me to continue to present this series. And I hope you're taking away the knowledge that is vital for you in terms of your understanding, and that you can parlay that into a teaching that is suitable to your purposes. So, and here we are, year after year, trying to do the same thing, but it's getting more challenging. But then again, at the same time, we are becoming better equipped as well. So the future is very bright, and we know that is true because the sun is very bright. So thank you all, and Happy New Year. And back to you, Mark.
Okay, let's just ask one more time. Thank you all. You've gotten beautiful hearts coming up from Dennis and Karina, and I'm sure the others as well. Any other last thoughts, comments, questions issues you'd like to have addressed? If not, we'll bring the session to a close. I'll play the final disclaimer and the meeting will come to an end. But then, of course, we have the One Nation on Tuesday, the workshop on Thursday, and of course, the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group on Wednesday, 7 a.m. All in the same Zoom number, 939-474-503 for those public sessions. And then, of course, there's all the individual public language community sessions as well that you're all welcome to join. So it's a big work, and it's just moving forward gradually, and everyone is going to be involved in this again as more and more people, as this game of enlightenment. And I think they'll start to see the knowledge, the fields of the 3I, and that's what Mr. Keshe said he'll be using in the transmission processes, some of the knowledge they gain from this interaction of the 3I. So we have still quite a bit more to go, but we're being brought along by a beautiful universal teacher, and we thank the Keshe Foundation. And as Mr. Keshe continues to ask, I hope one day he won't have to, but please support the Keshe Foundation in any way, shape, or form that you see viable for you to do. Thank you again, Alex. Happy New Year to everyone. Is there any other comments someone would like to make? Otherwise, I'll play the disclaimer and the meeting will come to an end. Okay, have an amazing rest of your day. Let me just bring up the disclaimer and take over the screen. Thank you all again. And let's continue with our work.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.